This is my community.
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 Good evening, I'm Claire McKenzie. Tonight, New Brunswick votes. We are just 30 minutes away from the polls closing, and as soon as that happens, we'll keep you up to speed as every vote is counted. We'll take you through what's at stake for you. From the people, the promises, and all the places we're watching, we're here to guide you through it all. Can Blaine Higgs become the first premier to win a third straight term, since Frank McKenna did back in 1995? Or can Susan Holt become the first woman to ever lead the province? And could the Greens hold the balance of power? Before the polls close, we're going to catch you up on all the issues at play here in New Brunswick and all the twists and turns of this very close campaign. Let's start with our provincial affairs reporter, Jacques Poitras, who's been on the front lines of this campaign. Jacques, what is at stake tonight?
Well, PC leader Blaine Higgs is trying to become the first premier since Frank McKenna in 1995 to win a third term. He wanted this election to be a choice on a single issue, his promise to cut the provincial sales tax by 2 points. But he has also faced in the last year a big revolt within his party, and he's hoping that the voters will look past that and opt for him. For the Liberals, you know, they've got the baggage of an unpopular Liberal Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, hanging over them. Susan Holt, the leader, campaigned on healthcare and affordability. She hammered those issues day after day, hoping that voters would choose change and not the choice Higgs is offering them. And then lastly, of course, the Greens, if they can hold on to a few seats and there's no majority, they would really be in the driver's seat in the legislature, determining who gets to govern. They say they have a list of conditions that they're getting ready in return for that support.
Well, it all does come down to the numbers tonight, and you will see them at the bottom of your screen. As you'll see, they're all 0 right now, but as soon as those polls close, that will change. And the CBC's Robert Jones is also here with us tonight. What are the storylines you're watching tonight, Robert?
Lots of storylines to watch, Claire, for sure. The number one for me, though, is can Liberals do something about what was an historically dismal showing in English New Brunswick ridings in the last election? Just look at that map behind me. You can see the problem. Liberals performed well in northern New Brunswick and in eastern New Brunswick, but nothing but an electoral desert in the southwest central part. You can go on a Sunday drive in St. Stephen, drive for 2 hours in any direction. You won't get anywhere near a Liberal riding. They got to do something about that. They didn't just fail to win any of these seats. They weren't competitive, and most of them finishing third or worse in 15 of these ridings. They cannot hope to compete for government tonight unless they can win some of these English seats, and they got a high hill to climb.
Thanks, Bob. Well, I'm so glad to have you both with us tonight to interpret the results as they come in. And in our Information Morning radio studio, it's a face familiar to many of you, the host of CBC's Power and Politics, David Cochran. Hello, David. Welcome.
Hey, Claire. Thank you so much. It's very exciting to be here on such a big night for New Brunswick politics, and let's face it, Canadian politics. And I'm delighted to be here in person with the insiders who have been explaining this election to the Power and Politics audience throughout this campaign. We've got Jeff Carr, who's a former PC cabinet minister in the Blaine Higgs government, Nicole Pico, who is the Deputy Minister of Finance in the Liberal government of Brian Gallant, and Amanda Wilderman, who is a former Chief of Staff to the New Brunswick Greens. Great to see you all in person at last, and it's finally election day. So look, the decision desk is going to make all the big calls. I want you to be our anticipation and expectation desk, though. So Jeff, let's start with you. It's your view, the rural seats largely decided. The path to victory goes through the cities of New Brunswick.
Yeah, I believe the rural seats are locked up unless we see some surprises tonight, which is very possible. It could happen. You know, it's been a few days since we last spoke. Some of the polls have been shifting a little bit, and when some people see those polls, they may want to move to where they think the power is going to lie. We'll have to wait on that. The urban ridings, yes, I'll be watching as well as a lot of other people, some Fredericton ridings, some St. John City ridings, as well as a few in the Moncton area. And we'll just see if Blaine can hang on to what he has without bleeding anymore. If Susan can pick up some places, and how David's team plays and all of that will be very interesting tonight.
Okay, Fredericton, St. John, and Moncton, key battlegrounds to watch. Nicole, the Liberals have a chance here to form government, but Susan Holt has a chance to make history.
Yes, she does. And I think that's super exciting to talk about having potentially the first woman and fluently bilingual woman to become Premier of New Brunswick. I think her and her team have put in an incredible effort. Bob talked about a big hill to climb. That's definitely true, but I think the effort has been made. And I think she drove the narrative. As Jacques was talking about, hammering away at health care and affordability and those issues that are important to New Brunswickers, she carried the day on those issues. So it's an exciting night.
She carried the day on those issues. We'll see if she carries the night when it comes to the votes. Amanda, the Greens, 3 seats, looking to gain seats, looking to gain influence. What's a good night for the Green Party tonight?
A good night would be to definitely grow the caucus. By how much is the question. There's a lot of interesting ridings that are going to come at us tonight. I know, I think I've said it every time we've talked, that when David won in 2014 and in 2018 when the two Greens joined him, the polls didn't show it in advance. So
watching for the surprise.
We're watching for some surprises.
Okay, we'll check it throughout the show, but right now let's go back to Claire.
Thanks so much, David, and we will be coming back to you frequently throughout the night to hear those insights. And we'll also be joined by the CBC's Khalil Akhtar. Khalil is gathered around a table of a different kind, with a few people who will be able to tell us the challenges on the ground that will face the leader of the province. Isn't that right, Khalil?
That's right, Claire. A kitchen table of sorts here, a kitchen table not unlike the kitchen table you have at home. Perhaps around your kitchen table you've talked about things like the wait time at the ER. Maybe you've talked about the fact that you don't have a family doctor, you can't find a family doctor right now. Maybe you've talked about the cost of rent or housing. Maybe around your kitchen table you've talked about the debate over gender policy in schools. Well, my guest today working to advance solutions on these and many other issues, and we're going to break bread here, and we're going to talk about housing and healthcare and gender policy. We're going to talk about all the issues that have been, Claire, ignited in this election campaign here in New Brunswick.
Thanks so much, Khalil. Now let's take a look at that clock. Oh my goodness, just over 22 minutes to go until those polls close and the race is underway. And when we come back, we'll check in with our reporters. The CBC's Jean Armstrong, Hadil Ibrahim, and Caitlin Beliveau are all standing by to bring you all the latest as things unfold on the ground at the party headquarters. Stay with us, that's coming up.
My biggest issues for this election is rising cost of food prices, and it's one of the biggest issues right now in around the area for me.
There are only two concerns which I feel that needs to be brought into attention. The first will be the inflation rate, and the second would be the taxes.
Welcome back. You're watching New Brunswick Votes 2024. We're now just about 17 minutes away from the polls closing. And those polls tell us there's lots on the line tonight, and there's a great deal at stake for New Brunswick. So we're going to take a look at the people who want to lead it. First, here's a look at the PC party and its leader, Blaine Higgs.
Progressive Conservative Leader Blaine Higgs was hired by Irving Oil right after graduating from UNB as a mechanical engineer in 1977 and worked his way up to leadership roles. He made his political debut in 1989 with the Confederation of Regions Party. He eventually left Irving in 2010 when he ran for and won a seat in Quispamsis under the David Alward PC government. During 4 years as finance minister, Higgs often voiced frustration with cabinet colleagues who wouldn't support his cost-cutting measures. In 2014, Higgs was booted from government by the Brian Gallant Liberals, and in 2016, he won the PC leadership. Now in charge, he put the party back in power in 2018, but just barely. A narrow finish left Higgs with the province's first minority government since 1920. But in 2020, Higgs won his coveted majority. The PCs were elected in 27 ridings, 2 more than the 25 needed for a majority.
And the CBC's Hadil Ibrahim is standing by at PC Party headquarters tonight in Quispamsis. Hadil, even before the election officially kicked off, Blaine Higgs came in swinging with a hearty pre-election promise.
That's right, Claire. The biggest promise Blaine Higgs made this election is a 2% cut in the harmonized sales tax. But other than that, there have not been that many promises from the Blaine Higgs camp compared to other parties. For example, the Liberal Party's platform is 30 pages, while the PC's is just 2. But in those 2 pages, Higgs promises to not fund any more safe injection sites, focusing on addiction recovery. He also promises to, quote, respect parents, which is a reference to changes he made to school gender identity policy that's still being challenged in court. He also promises to expand the scope of practice for nurses to make healthcare more accessible. And healthcare has been such a big issue this election, with so many people without a primary care provider and waiting such long hours in the ER. Now, Higgs has been elected twice before in 2 very different circumstances, and tonight here we're going to find out whether he's going to win a trifecta or end the streak. Claire.
Thanks so much, Hadil. That's the CBC's Hadil Ibrahim at PC Party headquarters in Quispamsis tonight. And now let's take a look at the woman who hopes to unseat Blaine Higgs, leader of the Liberal Party, Susan Holt.
Prior to entering politics, Liberal leader Susan Holt worked in local and global business management, human resources, and sales. She was also involved in community leadership, in national and provincial advocacy, as well as social enterprise leadership. This included experience working within government on social and economic policy, and she was a one-time advisor to former Liberal Premier Brian Gallant.
Susan Holt.
In August of 2022, Susan Holt made history when she became the first woman elected to win the leadership of the New Brunswick Liberal Party. The following April, she won a by-election in the former riding of Bathurst East and Nipisiguit-Saint Isidore, securing her a seat in the provincial legislature and making her the leader of the official opposition.
And here we have the Liberal Party headquarters tonight in downtown Fredericton and CBC's Jean Armstrong. Jean, Susan Holt has taken a team-based approach to her leadership. What has the Liberal campaign looked like leading up to tonight?
Well, Claire, unlike the PCs, the Liberals have a flurry of promises. They've filed 100 platform commitments with Elections New Brunswick, many of those promises around health care, 30 collaborative care clinics across the province, $15,000 retention bonuses for nurses, funding the first round of IVF for couples trying to start families. And you talk about team-based approach there, and that is a big theme throughout this campaign. Partnership, working with First Nations, rebuilding that relationship, vowing to work with municipalities on the sites of new schools. And they're really trying to strike that contrast with the PCs. Susan Holt has called Blaine Higgs a one-man show. So they're really trying to draw that distinction. Now, this whole vision that the Liberals have, they're hoping that they can do this without running a deficit. It remains to be seen how. Another note here is that the L word, you don't really see it very much in this room. Team Holt everywhere, on buttons, on stickers, on bags. But you don't see the word Liberal very often. They talk about a future Holt government. So another thing, too, is just the federal carbon tax. They've said that they want an alternative to that, but they haven't really said how that they would go about doing that. So will Team Holt inspire voters in their vision for change? We'll find out in a few hours.
Thanks so much, Jean. That's the CBC's Jean Armstrong at Liberal Party headquarters in Fredericton tonight. And now let's take a look at David Coon, leader of the Green Party.
Green Party leader David Coon is a long-time environmental advocate and campaign veteran.
We're joined by David Coon.
For nearly 30 years, he led the charge for environmental issues as head of the Conservation Council of New Brunswick. A biologist by training, Coon was front and center in the fight to regulate pesticide use, control industrialized harvesting of the province's forests, and the transition to renewable energy sources. In 2012, Coon left the Conservation Council and in 2014 became the second Green Party member in Canada to win a seat in a provincial legislature. In 2018, voters elected 2 more Green MLAs, giving Coon a small but effective caucus that played a key role in the Higgs government's COVID-19 Cabinet Committee. In 2020, Coon was re-elected in Fredericton South, and the party maintained its 3 seats in the legislature. In 2022, Coon won unanimous support for his motion to officially recognize a day of truth and reconciliation in New Brunswick, and he also won support of his motion to officially recognize Emancipation Day.
And the CBC's Caitlin Beliveau is joining us from the Green Party headquarters in downtown Fredericton tonight. Caitlin, David Coon is certainly no stranger to a campaign trail. What have we heard from the Green Party?
Claire, typically David Coon leads the crusade against climate change, although during this campaign we have heard a considerable amount of talk around healthcare. David Coon even boldly started his campaign earlier this month by saying that New Brunswickers have a right to primary healthcare. He is promising a lot to make that happen. More nursing homes for seniors, better access to women's healthcare, retention bonus for nurses, and that's just to name a few. Now, on the other hand, Coon's promise to run a deficit to the provincial budget did raise some eyebrows during the campaign. He says this is something that he's willing to do if it's what it takes to address healthcare. Now, both the PCs and the Liberals, on the other hand, have said that they would run a balanced budget, so that remains to be seen. It's important to remember still, Claire, as we head into tonight and watch those results roll in, that when the election was called, the Greens held 3 seats. Now, it's clear the party understands it's not likely in a position to win a majority, but it's still important to pay attention to what happens here tonight, because the Greens could be in a great position to snatch some seats in key ridings, making their decision-making power even greater during the next 4 years in the legislature. So really clear, it's going to be about that balance of power for the Greens if a majority government is not elected tonight. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. That is the CBC's Caitlin Beliveau at Green Party headquarters tonight. And we'll be checking in with all of our reporters in the field throughout the night to bring you the latest. We're about to head into our final commercial break before those results start coming in. So get comfortable, grab some snacks, and stay with us for New Brunswick Votes 2024.
What matters to me is my community,
the lack of recognition or the lack of politicians not recognizing the challenges that newcomers, immigrants and refugees that they're facing here.
What matters to me is affordable living. I think it's really important that everybody has a place to stay, has access to food and comfortability.
Some thoughts there on the election campaign from New Brunswickers. We're just a few minutes away from the polls closing. Look at that, 3 minutes and 55 seconds. But before we go, Bob, remind us where we're starting from.
Yeah, let's just look for a second at where we're starting before the votes come in. The map behind me shows New Brunswick's 49 ridings, and they're color-coded to match how people voted the last time they went to the polls, whether it was in the general election or in by-elections we've held since the general election. You notice there's two purple ridings on there. That's the People's Alliance, who won those ridings in the last election. Of course, the MLAs, Chris Austin and Michelle Conroy, the People's Alliance MLAs, quit the party, crossed the floor, joined the Progressive Conservatives, but voters have nothing to do with that. And so the People's Alliance stay on our board with 2 seats. Greens also have 2 seats. Of course, they won 3 in the election, but we've had a major redrawing of electoral boundaries, and David Coon, although he won his seat in Fredericton under the old boundaries, under the new boundaries, he would not have won, or have lost to the Progressive Conservatives. So basically, we're starting tonight, 28 seats for the Conservatives, 17 for the Liberals. Conservatives can lose 3, still maintain majority government of 25. Liberals have to do much better, gain 8 seats to get up to 25 in order for them to form a majority government.
All right, thank you. And Jacques, your final thoughts before those polls close?
Well, this beautiful map that we're talking about was drawn by an independent commission, which tries to give roughly equal population to each seat. However, it's already out of date because it's based on the 2021 census. The population, as we've talked about many times, has ballooned since then. Tens of thousands of new voters in the province, new New Brunswickers since that election. A lot of them, about 24,000, depending how you slice it, in the 3 cities where there are a lot of key ridings that could be decided by a few hundred votes. So these new New Brunswickers could be a big X factor, and no one really knows exactly how many there are or where they are, but if they're voting, they could make a difference. One note, Claire, that we've heard from Elections New Brunswick is there are 2 polls that are going to stay open a little later tonight. St. John West, Lancaster, they're going to go for 10 minutes extra. Madawaska-Lilac, Edmundston, an extra 25 minutes. It's not expected to slow down the results we'll be getting here to talk about, but stay in line if you're in those polling stations.
All right, and on that note, we are only about a minute away from most of the polls closing. And when those results start to fly, whether you're watching online or on television, you'll see a tally on the screen. Now that tally shows how many ridings each party will be leading or elected in. And the number each of the parties is striving for is 25. Now that's the number of seats required for a majority government. You'll also see the individual results of your own riding as we cycle through all 49 ridings at least once every 2 minutes, maybe more often. 4 years ago, this province was in the early months of a pandemic. Since then, we've seen population growth, a healthcare crisis, exploding housing costs, a woman chosen as leader of the Liberal Party, and a PC premier fighting off a revolt within his own party. Today, the voters get their say on all of it. The clock is ticking. We're just 31 seconds to go before the polls close. Our team is standing by to get you all of the information you need on this New Brunswick Votes 2024.
This is my community.
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 Good evening, I'm Claire Mackenzie. This is New Brunswick Votes 2024. It's 8 o'clock here in the Maritimes, and that means that polls have closed and we're ready to bring you all the results on this critical election night in New Brunswick. It's an election about healthcare, taxes, and potentially an election about change. The race remains uncertain, and over the next few hours, it could be decided by a few key ridings. The polls have just closed, but any minute now, first results are going to hit our system. They're going to come fast and furious because votes here are counted by tabulator. So watch those numbers on the bottom of your screen that show leading or elected. They're going to start bouncing around very quickly. And our team is here all night to bring you all the riding results, insights, and analysis. I'm here with the CBC's Provincial Affairs reporter, Jacques Poitras, and CBC's Robert Jones, and they're here to break down all those critical numbers. Jacques, I'm going to start with you. Higgs is going for a third straight term. but with a very different party.
It is a very different party. A lot of old party stalwarts have left in one way or the other. A lot of veteran MLAs decided not to run in this election. They opposed him on a lot of issues. His leadership style, it really came to a head with Policy 713. They were gone. A lot of volunteers have been dismayed about his way of governing and are sitting this one out. Blaine Higgs has said this is a great opportunity to welcome new people into the party. Some of them are very socially conservative and have alarmed some of the long-timers. Higgs has called this a revolution in the PC party, which made a lot of people nervous. At the start of this election, he said, now I've got a team that's on the same page as me. So today we will find out if New Brunswickers want that team governing them.
All right. Very, very exciting. Bob, what do you make of it all?
Well, Claire, that is a key issue for Liberals in this election. They're hoping to capitalize on all this chaos inside the Conservative Party. And we have 12 PC MLAs elected in 2020 not running for re-election tonight. That's left all kinds of traditional PC ridings wide open with no incumbents and giving Liberals some hope tonight. For example, in St. John, this is the case in a number of ridings. Starting in St. John Harbour, Adam Smith, the candidate there, this was won handily by Arlene Dunn, respected MLA and cabinet minister. She just got fed up with politics, resigned her seat, resigned her cabinet position back in February, and left. And that left PC scrambling for a replacement. Adam Smith didn't even want to run in this riding. He ran for the nomination in a neighboring riding, lost, and so he came over to Harbour. But Liberals have their hopes pinned on David Hickey in that riding. Next door, St. John, Portland, Simons. This is the eye of the Blaine Higgs storm in the St. John. 7-term PC MLA Trevor Holder had a falling out, resigned his seat, resigned his cabinet position, and he's not running again. The Conservatives have put up Paul Dempsey to run in that riding against John Dornan, who Higgs fired, and he won a $2 million wrongful dismissal suit. He was head of the Horizon Health Network, and there are a lot of Higgs issues in that riding. Finally, St. John West Lancaster, Kim Costain is running. 4-time MLA Dorothy Shepherd also famously resigned in the legislature, slapped her resignation letter on Blaine Higgs' desk and walked out and told reporters she'd had enough of his leadership. And they had to find Kim Costain, a newcomer, to run in this riding against Kate Elman Wilcott for the Liberal Party, Joanna Killen for the Green Party. Interesting issue with Joanna Killen. She actually gave birth during the election campaign. And she's an interesting story. Her father was a former PC MLA in the David Alward government, sat with Blaine Higgs in government and supported him in his leadership bid. One of the few MLAs who has worked with Higgs, who did support him in the leadership. And another point about Killen, full disclosure, she's also my stepdaughter.
Ah, so I guess congratulations are in order as well, Grandpa.
Yes.
Well, pretty exciting. We have our first results coming in. I said they'd come fast and furious, and they certainly are. Our first results are coming in. This is just with 4 out of 24 polls reporting in Woodstock Heartland. And Bill Hogan, who is the incumbent candidate there, and you'll know that because of the little star beside his name. If you ever see that, that little star means that they were elected in the last election in 2020. So Bill Hogan has a lead of 221 over Marissa Pelkey, who is with the Liberal Party, and Charlie Weber with the People's Alliance. So that is our very first riding results coming in tonight. We have reporters standing by at the Progressive Conservative, the Liberal, and the Green Party headquarters tonight, and they will be our eyes and our ears on the ground, bringing you the latest. As well tonight, we have the host of CBC's Power and Politics, David Cochran is here. David, you have some people there with you who are certainly no strangers to your Power and Politics audience, and they'll be familiar to New Brunswickers as well.
Yeah, that's right, Claire. We've got early results here, but we're already closer to a final result than they are in British Columbia. And we've got Jeff Carr, former cabinet minister under Blaine Higgs, Nicole Pico, who was a deputy minister of finance in the Liberal government of Brian Gallant, and Amanda Wilderman, who was the chief of staff to the New Brunswick Brunswick Greens. So the results are coming in, so we got to be ready to send it back to Claire just any moment. But Nicole, I want to start with something that Jean Armstrong was talking about at the Liberal headquarters in the pre-show about the L word hanging over this election. It's Team Holt, right? It's not Liberal. And I ran into some Liberal candidates here on Saturday, and I asked them, how is Justin Trudeau affecting this campaign? And they recoiled and flinched like I hit him with a hot spoon. How much damage is that having on the Liberal efforts here?
Looking at the map right now, it's interesting to say. But definitely, it has been an issue at the door. There's no question it's been a distraction. But I think that the message that Holt has been giving about healthcare and change and affordability has been sticking, and they've maneuvered around that. So I'm not sure it's going to have a huge impact, but again, we won't know till all the results are in.
Okay,
so.
we're going to get Jeff and Amanda this in a bit, but now we're going to go back to Claire because we've got more than 20 ridings up on the board.
We do indeed, and I want you to pay attention to this little banner across the bottom of your screen there. I'm going to call that the mini banner tonight, and I'm obsessed with it because we're going to watch this all night long. So we need 25 seats for a majority. There are 49 ridings in all, so we're getting results in all but 26 of the ridings right now, and at the moment, with the results that are coming in, the PCs have 13 seats, are leading in 13 seats. The Liberals are leading in 9 ridings, and the Green Party is leading in 1 riding. Let's take a look at how some of those are breaking down. All right, so there you go, the incumbent. Remember that little star I was mentioning? Chris Austin is the incumbent in Fredericton-Grand Lake, and he is leading in Fredericton-Grand Lake right now over Kevin Dignam of the Liberal Party and Ken Washburn of the Green Party. Let's check out another riding. And in Sussex Three Rivers, okay, another incumbent, you know that now because there's that star, Tammy Scott Wallace for the Progressive Conservative Party, leading over Bruce Northrup by 309 votes right now, with 5 out of 19 polls reporting. And we have Progressive Conservative Party Don Monahan is leading in Arcadia, Butternut Valley, Maple Hills. There's no incumbent in this riding rather, and has a lead of 309. And look at that. Okay, so Megan Mitten, who is one of the 3 Green Party incumbents, is leading at the moment in her riding of Tantramar, and over John Higham and Bruce Finney. I'm going to head back right now to the CBC's David Cochran and his panel. David.
Claire, you weren't kidding about the tabulators and the results coming in fast. Jeff, it's early results, but there's some big numbers there. Normally in the hand-counting provinces, you've got like a 6-4 lead, but we've got hundreds of votes there. To pick up on what I was asking Nicole about, how much of a factor do you think the federal Liberals are in the provincial Liberal effort here?
Well, from some of the Facebook messaging and some of the statuses that I've seen, Justin Trudeau is the Conservatives' best friend right now all across the country. I guess it's yet to be seen if Miss Holt has been able to shake that and distance herself from Justin Trudeau. Just likewise in 2014 when we were running and Prime Minister Harper was the Prime Minister, it was a drag on us, even though we believe that Prime Minister Harper was doing a great job at the time, but people were ready for that change and connected the Progressive Conservatives with the Conservatives. So Justin Trudeau is our best friend right now in any conservative world.
Amanda, how do you see it? What do you think the impact is of the state of the federal political dynamic on this election here in New Brunswick?
I think the PCs really did their best to try to connect that even further and really hit that home. I'm not sure. It was definitely a concerted effort. I definitely noticed that in the platform and in the signage, that the word Liberal was completely absent. I'm not really sure what the effect is going to be here. Ms. Holt has done a pretty good job of standing on her own feet and differentiating herself, but I talk to people every day. I read stuff every single day where people are confusing, mixing up a bit.
Right.
Trudeau and Holt, and so it's really anyone's guess.
So, Nicole, on that, it is Team Holt, right? And we've seen this in Newfoundland and Labrador, where Andrew Furey is a Liberal premier, and it's Team Fury on his side. The Liberal also doesn't exist there. And you saw Blaine Higgs right after he met with the Lieutenant Governor talking about this Singh-Trudeau coalition and talking about the Coon-Holt coalition.
Right.
I mean, how do you think that has played out in the minds of New Brunswick voters tonight?
Again, I think that she has redefined the Liberal brand here in the province, which I think is fantastic, and so has been able, I think, to keep some of that distance. But again, it's really hard to measure that. You know, I don't know how one would go about measuring that, perhaps in a poll, to say, is that going to affect you or is it not? But we'll just have to see, again, how it all plays out.
There are vibes, though, right? Candidates
there
hear it
are
at the door,
vibes.
right?
They
I mean,
did
like,
hear it at
you
the
do hear
door.
things at the door,
Yeah.
and that is, you use that to assess how an
you
issue is
do,
playing.
but
right?
I think they're also hearing vibes about wanting change.
Right.
And being, you know, Mr. Higgs has his own popularity issues as well. Not that we need to go there, but I think it's going to be interesting to see.
Well, we will go there later because I want to talk to Jeff about that in particular. But right now we're going to go to Claire because look at where those numbers are, people. We're getting some big returns at this point.
Thanks so much, David. We are getting some good returns here. We're getting some very fast movement going on here on the mini board. Let's all look. So right now we're only waiting for one riding, for results from one riding, and that's Shippagan-Lazy. We've got all 48 other ridings that are reporting here. And at the moment, look how those numbers just switched. It's incredible how quickly they switch around just in a matter of minutes. Jacques with the Liberals now leading in 27 ridings, the PCs in 20, and the Greens in 1. And remember, that magic number is 25 seats for a majority.
That's right, and they are on their way. Some of these leads are pretty narrow right now. We're seeing some leads of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes here and there, so it's very early, but we are getting hundreds of votes in some of these races, and so this is where it's looking. Let's start with Grand Falls, Vallée des Rivières, Saint-Quentin. Takes almost as long to say as it does to drive across it. Chuck Chasson leading comfortably by 850 votes over Marc-André Ross of the Progressive Conservatives. That was pretty much a sure bet for the Liberals, but it has voted PC before. Moving on now to St. Croix, where Kathy Baucus, former newspaper reporter in the area in Charlotte County, became a PC MLA, is ahead of the Liberal Troy Lions by 217 votes. And third in this set of results, Mary Wilson, cabinet minister in the Higgs government. She was in, then she was out. Then when Higgs got rid of a bunch of people after that revolt, she was back in, pledged her loyalty to Premier Higgs, and she is building up a comfortable lead against Stephen Horseman, former cabinet minister from Fredericton North, now running where he grew up in Oromocto-Sunbury.
Okay, very good. Now, Bob, break this down for us.
Well, it is early hours, but wow, we have like 35,000 votes in so far, so it's worthwhile looking at vote totals province-wide, and it's almost a dead heat. Look at that, 42.8% for the Liberal Party, 42.2% for Progressive Conservatives. Keep in mind, Progressive Conservatives beat the Liberals by about 5 percentage points in the last election. This is important, if it holds, for the Liberals to make up that kind of ground. That is translating somewhat into a seat change. We talked about this earlier. Liberals have to gain 8 seats in order to be in majority territory. They've gained 11 so far. PCs are down 8. So that is a significant change for those two parties. But, you know, caution. I think I've counted 20 ridings where the vote difference is less than 20 votes. So things can change significantly, but in the global sense, the total vote, Liberals are doing what they had to do, moving their total up from last time and catching the Conservatives.
All right, back to you, Jacques. Let's look at some of these ridings.
Yeah, we talked about how the 3 cities are key, so let's whip around the triangle here, starting in Fredericton North. Well, 2 votes is better than 1 in Fredericton North, but I think it's safe to say this is a little early and could very well change.
Yes.
But Luke Rantle ahead by 1 vote. He has doubled Jill Green's vote already. And so moving on now, though, to Moncton Centre, where we've got a few more votes in, thankfully. Rob McKee, the McKee name in Moncton among Liberals is pretty golden, and so he is ahead comfortably against Dave Melanson of the Progressive Conservatives. But let's take a look at this next race. This is super interesting. Rothsay, part of the Greater St. John area. Not really one we were looking at. It is very early, but Alison Townsend starting to build a lead against Ted Fleming, first elected in a 2012 by-election, cabinet minister in the Higgs government. If Rothsay goes Liberal, we've got an interesting night on our hands.
Interesting. It isn't already an interesting night, Jacques. Well, let's just take a look here. Okay, so with 48 ridings reporting, we've got The Liberals leading in 27 of them, the PC's leading in 20, and the Green Party in one of those ridings. We're going to head over to the PC Party headquarters in Quispamsis now, where the CBC's Hadil Ibrahim is standing by. Hadil.
Well, Claire, the excitement is certainly building here. With me is Paul Dastu. He is Blaine Higgs' Chief of Staff. And I'm going to ask him here, how are you feeling about these early results?
Well, you know, they're early results. We had a campaign strategy to be out there. We didn't realize that the Green vote would almost, go down substantially. But based on our models, there's still a long time before the end of the night, and we'll see at the end of the evening.
And what's your sense of how New Brunswickers are feeling about the policy direction of the party?
Well, we've gone through this for the last year and a half, where we had about 15% of our members that were not necessarily in line with the rest of the caucus. So I think everything has been written on it, everything has been said about it, and we'll see tonight if it really affected the population in New Brunswick.
Any signs so far about how that's affected the vote?
Well, what we saw this year, going with the bus throughout the province, a lot of families would come and say thank you for supporting families. 4 years ago, it was thank you for managing the pandemic the way you did. So, tomorrow morning, all the experts will be out there saying that should have made. One thing for sure is Premier Higgs has always had the conviction of his that always is a conviction person. He feels this is the right thing to do for New Brunswick, and he's gone with it.
He's all about the values that he has.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Claire, that was Paul Dastu. He is the Higgs' Chief of Staff. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Hadil. That's Hadil Ibrahim in the PC Party headquarters in Quispamsis tonight. Now, it is early minutes, you might say, in this election night. In fact, there's a lot of volatility going on. There are 13 races right now with less than a 10-vote margin. So an exciting time here. We're going to head over to the Liberal Party headquarters with the Liberals right now, out of 48 ridings reporting, are leading in 27 of those ridings. We're going to head over and talk to the CBC's Jean Armstrong. Dean.
Thanks, Claire. I think that ticker at the bottom of the screen and the results that listeners are hearing is sort of a mood determinator. It's something that once those numbers shot up for the Liberals, the energy in this room just completely changed. Lots of cheering and so much red, of course, in this room. And my next guest is no stranger to that. She's got a beautiful red cardigan on tonight. Her name is Hannah Fulton Johnston. She's the party executive director. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Jean. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited, and I think everybody here tonight is excited to be here to watch history unfold.
How is Susan feeling right now?
Oh, I mean, listen, she has had so much energy through this campaign, and before the campaign, for the past 2 years, she's been traveling the province, every corner, multiple times. So she's got so much hope for the future, as do we all.
How has this campaign gone for the Liberals, and what have you been hearing at the door? What has the campaign been like?
I'm sorry.
How has the campaign been these past 4 weeks? The feeling at the door that you're getting from people, and just the feeling within your team.
It's been incredible. We have a team of 49 candidates all across the province, and they've all dug in really deeply. They've built teams. It's been a truly grassroots effort. And the leader has been in every riding multiple times, and we've had new volunteers and new people joining us. We've had people coming from all different political stripes, and we're so happy to have everybody with us.
As the results start to in, what parts of the province are you watching closely?
All of them. We're hopeful. We've run a very positive campaign focused on what matters to New Brunswickers, which is better health care where and when you need it, affordability, and I think that resonates all across the province, not in any particular region.
Hannah, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Claire, that's Hannah Fulton Johnston, the party executive director, speaking to us from a very busy, very red and white campaign headquarters tonight at the Crown Plaza.
It certainly is. Thanks so much. That's the CBC's Jean Armstrong at Liberal Party headquarters. 18% of the polls have now reported province-wide. Bob Jones.
Yeah, Claire, it's some of these ridings, as Jacques has mentioned, have 2, 3, 5 votes in them, but a lot of them have substantial numbers, and we're beginning to see it shake out in terms of how these seats are changing. A lot of things happening in the cities, especially in Moncton, for example. We are looking at several Liberal gains so far in terms of the results that we have to date, but big changes also in the St. John region. Fairly substantial leads in St. John, Portland, Simons. That's the big one that Liberals are hoping to get. Dr. John Dornan running in that riding that Trevor Holder held for all those years. And Liberals also performing very well up in Fredericton. We see all kinds of red in the Fredericton area, which we didn't see in the last election campaign. They had to perform better in the 3 cities, particularly in Fredericton and St. John, but they're doing well in all 3 cities to date. And although some of these ridings have very few votes, some of them have a lot of votes in them, and these leads are still holding up. So far, so good if you're a supporter of the Liberal Party.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. And let's just look here with still 48 ridings reporting at the moment. We have 26 ridings in which the Liberals are leading, 20 in which the PCs are leading, and 2 in which the Greens are leading. Bob was just talking about, Jacques, how the Liberals have to make strides in the cities. What about in the St. John area?
Yeah, let's take a look at St. John. Really interesting races developing there tonight. The Liberals have gained 5 seats in the St. John region. So this is, they were hoping for 2, 3 to try to get to a majority. Right now, they're at 5. We're early, but not too early. A lot of votes are in. So 5 seats gained in St. John would be something. Let's start taking a look around the city. David Hickey, St. John Harbour. This may have been the easiest target. It was a comfortable PC win last time, but 3 elections before that in a row, it was decided by fewer than 100 votes. This was a prime target. David Hickey, a city councillor, is building up a comfortable lead for the number of votes that are in. Let's move on now to the next riding, St. John, Portland, Simons. As Bob mentioned, this was the area that was represented by Trevor Holder. Dr. John Dornan, fired by Blaine Higgs, now a candidate, well-known doctor, former CEO of Horizon Health. He is building up a comfortable lead, to say the least, against Paul Dempsey of the PC. So that is another Liberal gain in the city. And St. John West Lancaster. Fewer votes in, but Kate Elman-Wilcott, this is ahead in Dorothy Shepherd's former riding. Dorothy Shepherd, one of the unhappy PC ministers who quit the cabinet, didn't run again. It looks like it could be a Liberal pickup if this trend continues into the night.
Thanks so much, Jacques. So interesting. This is such an interesting race tonight. And you know what? There are 14 seats right now with less than a 100 vote margin. Let's look at one of them. In Quispamsis, Blaine Higgs riding, Aaron Kennedy right now is in the lead by 26 votes. Just 26 votes leading over PC leader Blaine Higgs, who has 471 votes, Aaron Kennedy with 497 votes. Let's take a look at how the leader of the Green Party is doing. Okay, right now, Daniel Chippen, the candidate for the PC party, is in the lead in Fredericton Lincoln over David Coon, Green Party leader, by 11 votes. And Susan Holt right now is in the lead. All of these leaders in very tight races right now. Susan Holt is in the lead right now in her riding of Fredericton South Silverwood by 86 points. My goodness. What do you make of it, Jacques?
Well, Quispamsis was not a riding. The Liberals like to fantasize about ridings every election, and this was one they've been fantasizing about. It's hard to imagine that result holding, but that would be one of the big stories of the night if that happened. But Yeah, all of these leaders are in tight races, and maybe it's good for them to not take anything for granted in their local constituencies.
Oh my goodness. We have some breaking news. The CBC Decision Desk is making its first elected candidate projection. Chuck Chasson has, the Decision Desk is projecting elected in Grand Falls, Vallée des Rivières, Saint-Quentin, and that is over the PC, a handy lead, actually, that he had over the PCs. So that is Chuck Chasson, our first projected elected candidate this evening. We're going to head over to the CBC's Khalil Akhtar, who's sitting at a table just outside our CBC studio here in Fredericton with a group of community stakeholders. Khalil.
Yeah, a kitchen table of sorts. We're talking homelessness, we're talking healthcare, we're talking gender policy, Claire. Let's go around the table here. Marcel Lebrun, founder of the 12 Neighbors Project, the housing project in Fredericton. What's at stake for you in this election?
Yeah, for me, of course, I work with individuals that are struggling and vulnerable, and so looking at how do we make New Brunswick a place where we take care of our most vulnerable citizens. So affordable housing is really important. Also for me, I'd love to see our Wolastoqey, Passamaquoddy, and Mi'kmaq brothers and sisters to have a government that listens and can partner with them, and I know that's something that has been a struggle. And so that's really important, and just want to say huge thanks to all the candidates for just putting themselves out there and all the hard work they've been doing in this campaign.
Indeed, a ton of work. Emmanuel Jackson, you are the co-chair of Fredericton Pride. Tell me about what's at stake for you in this election.
Yeah, so the most important thing for me, being a young person, being a student, is the safety of kids in schools, and specifically around Policy 713 is something that I'm very passionate about. And LGBTQ rights in general is what I'm focusing on.
Over here, Dr. Chris Goodyear, surgeon at the Chalmers Hospital in Fredericton. What are you watching tonight?
What's at stake for all New Brunswickers tonight is the future of their healthcare system. And again, many New Brunswickers have expressed frustration over the last number of years in terms of access to care, surgical wait times, ER wait times. And, I'm sure every candidate has heard it as they've knocked on the doors of New Brunswickers that that's their number one priority. Whichever government gets elected tonight has a huge challenge in front of them to hopefully work with all healthcare professionals and address the issues that we're all facing.
Yeah, a lot of promises, a lot of tall orders.
Absolutely. And, promises are one thing, action is another thing. So, again, whichever government we see at the end of the night, they've got a lot of work to do.
Over to Vic Assani. Vic, you are a new Canadian. You're an entrepreneur. Tell me about what you've been watching.
Well, I was watching more about the immigration policies and the immigrants in New Brunswick. And the other thing I was watching, I was more concerned about that there was not enough campaigning, if I would like to say, and zero visibility, I'd say.
In terms of immigration issues specifically,
yes.
What would you have liked to hear?
Well, with immigrations, we as an immigrants, we need more help from the government in terms of getting more support, in terms of housing. If I talk about housing crisis at present in New Brunswick, it is very hard for newcomers to find accommodation in their budget to survive in the city.
Issues here, Claire, around this table, likely the same issues that are around at many kitchen tables right now in New Brunswick. We're going to check in periodically through the night, Claire, and have some deeper conversations with each of these folks. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Khalil. That's CBC's Khalil Akhtar. And the CBC Decision Desk has another projected elected to tell us about. In the riding of Carleton, Victoria, the CBC Decision Desk is projecting that Margaret Johnson of the Progressive Conservative Party has won her seat over Julian Moulton, the Liberal, and Rebecca Blayvote with the Green Party. So that's Margaret Johnson elected in that riding. Bob.
Well, Claire, we've passed 90,000 votes. That's about a quarter of the number of votes we had in the last election. So it gives us a really pretty good sample size to look at the mood of the province generally. Liberals now at 44.7% of the vote. That's a 10-point jump from where they were in the last election. That is a substantial shift in the context of an election campaign. In fact, it's better than the Liberals did when they won a majority government back in 2014 with Brian Gallant. It it has translated into a seat change. Liberals are up 10 so far, leading in 10 more than they won in the last election. PC's down 8, and Liberals at 26. You need 25 to form a majority government. They're at 26, leading at the moment. So, boy, they're in that territory, but not home free yet, because a lot of these ridings remain very close. In fact, look at the top 3 too close to call ridings.
Wow.
These Liberal, that Caracat, there's only been 2 votes cast, so no difference at all. And if those were to flip those top 3, suddenly instead of a 6-seat lead for the Liberals, you would have basically a tie. So still very competitive, lots of more votes to come in, but we definitely are seeing a shift in popular opinion toward the Liberals from the PCs. How many seats that translates into at the end of the night, we'll still have to wait and see.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Now let's look at that mini board. At the moment, all of the ridings are reporting, and at the moment, early minutes, as we've been saying, the Liberals are leading in 30 ridings, the PCs in 17, and the Green Party is leading in 2 ridings. We're actually going to head over to the Green Party headquarters in downtown Fredericton tonight, where the CBC's Caitlin Beliveau is standing by. Caitlin, how's it going?
Well, Claire, since the last time we've spoken, a sea of green has just flooded these Dolan's doors in downtown Fredericton, and a woman that knows all about that is standing here with me. So I have here Genevieve McRae. She's the interim executive director for the Green Party. Genevieve, you've been here, you've been up on stage, you're going around the room. Just tell me, how are people feeling on this very important night?
We're excited. We're nervous because that's an election night, right? But you can tell the room's packed and the energy is high. We all know that our candidates have been out working really hard. We've had a ton of great volunteers and everybody's coming together tonight, hoping for some good wins.
It's been a long road for the Greens. It's been, I've heard from David Coon's assistant herself saying that the campaigning has gone longer than a month. It's more like a year. Tell me about how has the campaign gone?
It has been a long road, but I think that's actually done us some good. I was involved in one of the local campaigns back in October when we all expected a snap election. Every day it seemed like we got new intel saying, yep, the election will be called tomorrow, it'll be called on Friday, it'll be called on Monday. And all that really did was galvanize us into action. And we ended up with a bunch of great candidates with great teams around them ready to hit the ground running. And then when the threat was finally gone at the moment, it didn't really change things. We kept those teams together. The candidates were in line, so they started getting to work. We know candidates were knocking on doors as early as January for us, and that can only do good. When you're a third party, every little bit you can knock on those doors helps. So, it was a difficult year because not knowing is hard on candidates, on their families, on the plans that you make, but at the same time, it gave us a lot of time to build that excitement, build that momentum, and do the work that we often don't have the time to do. I'm hoping that's going to pay off tonight.
And now that you're finally here, what's the hope? What are you optimistic about moving forward into this night?
I think I'm not going to make serious projections. I have a stretch goal. I have a number in mind. It's very optimistic. I don't think it's out of the realm of possible.
I understand that. I've got to cut you off just because a little birdie in my ear is telling me we've got to go back to Claire. But this has been Genevieve McRae, the interim executive director of the Greens. Back to you, Claire.
Thanks so much. That's the CBC's Caitlin Beliveau at the Green Party headquarters tonight. All right, everyone. We have breaking news. The CBC Decision Desk has seen enough. New Brunswick, your next government is a Liberal majority. Your Premier designate is Leader Susan Holt, making New Brunswick history tonight as the first woman to become Premier of the province. She campaigned on change that she said was badly needed in New Brunswick, making big promises around health care and affordable living. And she stressed a team-based approach throughout her campaign, and her team has had an incredible showing tonight at the polls. This is a historic night for New Brunswick, Jacques, the first woman Premier of New Brunswick.
It sure is. Susan Holt had a plan in this election. She and there we see Liberal headquarters listening to us, Claire.
Look at that.
But I'll just say, Susan Holt had a plan. She said she was going to talk about healthcare and affordability for the entire campaign. Blaine Higgs had that big promise to cut the HST, and he was offering voters a choice. And Holt decided, voters wanted change in healthcare and affordability, and she hit it and hit it and hit it day after day. She promised it. She threw out little aspects of the promise over and over. And Blaine Higgs every day was reacting, talking about why Holt's promises were too expensive, why they weren't realistic, why he was already doing those things. But the point was, he was debating her issues. He was talking about the issues she wanted him to talk about. And this is the result. We never heard about that HST cut much at all during the election because Higgs was talking about Susan Holt's issues. And this is the result.
And look at those people. Look at the celebrations. They're jubilant there at the Liberal Party headquarters tonight. Look at them. Oh, my goodness. Bob, this is a historic moment.
It certainly is. I mean, New Brunswick has had, 34 premiers, all men. We're going to have our first woman, one of the last provinces in the country to finally achieve that milestone, but it is a big deal, and it's not a little win. It's a big win. Susan Holt currently at 48.5% of the vote. That's bigger than Brian Gallant got when he won a majority. That's bigger than Sean Graham got when he won a majority. It's the largest vote total by the Liberal Party in New Brunswick since 1995 when Frank McKenna had his third majority government. It's a very impressive achievement for her and her party. We'll have to see how many seats they end up with, but it is going not just a majority, a comfortable majority, and really total victory for Holt tonight.
And look at that, and our board there, 31 seats that they're now leading in. And we're going to bring in the CBC's Jean Armstrong, who is there amidst the folks celebrating at the Liberal Party headquarters in downtown Fredericton tonight. Jean, what a scene of happiness.
It is just electric in here, Claire. It is totally surreal just to see the moment that you declared the Liberal majority government. Everybody jumped in the air and screamed and had their noisemakers, these inflatable noisemakers, slapping around. It was a deafening scene, and people are just so excited. There's so many women in this room, too. I think that that's so obvious when you look around. Young and old, the room is crowded. People are so excited to be here for this moment as history really is made. The first woman leader in New Brunswick.
Just incredible, Jean. And is Susan Holt there now, Jean?
I don't see her yet. But we do have actually a special guest with us now that I want to bring into you. This is Aldea Landry. This is an important person. I just want to back up. Let's back up just a little bit here, Aldea. When we found her, she was wiping away tears because Aldea she's the woman who has held the highest elected office in New Brunswick. She was a key backer of Susan Holt in the leadership race and McKenna's deputy premier. And Aldea, thank you for joining us. How are you feeling right now?
Emotional, very emotional. I think it's not only, it's historical, and I mean, I want to congratulate everybody who's run. I know what it is like. But we're so lucky to have a leader like Susan. I mean, the province is 240 years old, and our first.
When you backed Susan Holt during that leadership race, what did you see in her?
Well, I didn't start in the leadership role. 14 years ago, I had given a session on governance, and Susan was there. Our premier was there, and she was so good. I went to her and I said, you should run. And, well, the rest is history.
What did you see in her? What qualities did you see in her that made you think she would be an excellent leader?
Well, first of all, she inspired trust, and she's a team player and extremely intelligent. And right now, what I really admire is the fact that she is so close to people and work with her team. I mean, we need this. We need a collective effort. We need to bring decisions back into the regions. And that's what our leader has said she will do. I'm not saying she's promised, because Susan doesn't promise, she does. And really, I'm so excited.
She was maybe the first person that she hugged you when she won that leadership You're very important to her. It's clear you're still processing this. You're so excited. You're wiping away tears earlier. So what does this mean? What does this mean to New Brunswick to have a female leader for the first time ever?
Can you imagine? We never had a women premier before. We are the only province, we were the only province besides Nova Scotia. We've never had a women premier, if I'm correct. And I mean, today, Louis Robichaud would have been 99 years old. Can you imagine what he did in 1960? And now we have somebody following in his footsteps. Anyway, it's just like, words can't express how proud I am of our leader.
Aldea, thank you very much. And there you have it, Claire. That's Aldea Landry. She's was McKenna's deputy premier, a key backer of Susan Holt in this leadership race. The first person that Susan Holt went out to hug when she won that leadership a couple of years ago. And she's the woman who's held the highest leadership position in New Brunswick up to this point, because Susan Holt has made history this evening, becoming the first woman leader of this province, Claire.
She most certainly has. Bob Jones, the CBC's Jean Armstrong, thank you so much. Bob Jones, I want you to look at the big picture here.
Well, it's just an impressive vote total that the Liberals have put up tonight. Nearly 50% of the vote. We look at 48.6%. Again, their best result since 1995 when Frank McKenna was premier and running up majority governments like it was no difficulty. And, there was some concern that the PCs might be helped by the collapse of the People's Alliance Party. Not happening. Their vote is down about 5 percentage points from the last election. The sea change is just growing as we continue into the evening. Liberals up 14 seats from the last where we started the evening, well ahead of the 8-seat gain they needed to form a majority government. PCs down 12, and there's some significant PC names in that group. And the People's Alliance, those two ridings that the People's Alliance had won, of course, they're not, that's so down 14 really altogether for that, for the small C Conservative Party. So it just is an impressive victory, nearly 50% of the vote, which we don't see anymore with the rise of third parties in New Brunswick. But boy, full value to Susan Holt for what she's managed to pull off tonight.
She's managed to pull off history tonight. And you know what? We have 80% of polls reporting right now. And with 80% of polls reporting, the Liberals are leading or elected in 31, PCs leading or elected in 16, the Greens leading or elected in 2. Jacques.
Yeah, let's look at some races now, some changes. Yes. 3 ridings. This is beyond what the Liberals really hoped for, that total. Rob McKee now effectively doubling approximately Dave Melanson's vote in Moncton Centre. That's a newly redrawn riding with a lot of PC areas, and he's just crushing it. He is elected. He's not just ahead, he's elected. Moving on now to the next seat, Moncton South. Again, Claire Johnson elected against Greg Turner. You can't understate how well-known, well-liked Greg Turner is in Moncton, and she has taken down a PC cabinet minister with a sizable margin. She is elected. She's going to the legislature. And finally, let's take a look at Miramichi Bay Neguac. Wow, this was considered one of the key contests in the whole province. And Sam Johnston from Miramichi is ahead of Régent Savoie. He's a city councillor in Miramichi. This is a riding with 2 very distinct areas, and so it's not declared elected yet, but that's a pretty comfortable lead for Sam Johnston, who is on his way to the legislature, it looks like, from Miramichi Bay Neguac.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Let's check in with David Cochran and his panel. I can't wait to hear what they're saying now.
All right, Claire, thank you very much. Nicole Pico, on our last appearance on Power and Politics, you said there's a wind in the Liberal sails.
Yes,
and
sir.
Boy, were you correct. This is one way to push back against the idea the Prime Minister was dragging you down. What's your reaction?
I am elated. I am very happy for Susan Holt and her team. She pulled together an amazing group of candidates, as is obvious by the results tonight. They worked incredibly hard. She ran a positive campaign. And she's been doing this for 2 years. This has been her life's work, and I think, like Aldea said, you know, she's just an incredible young woman who is going to take this province into, I think, a really good place.
She's 47 years old.
Yeah.
I met her the other night at her event at a brewery here in Fredericton,
Yes.
and they were optimistic, but people are often optimistic when they're in a microbrew. But she felt,
True.
she said to me, we've got the majority, it's a question of how high
Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah.
Did you have it going to 31 where it is right now? I mean, it's not all final, but this is larger, I think, than a lot of people thought.
As of last night, I was personally at 30. So I've heard as high as 35. I'm not.
Whoa.
That's I think
The
not.
Nicole Pico decision desk is making a big projection
That
there.
is not my projection at all. You know, people like to talk. There's no question about that. But over 30, we're going to take it, and we're super proud of her.
It's interesting. She's 47 years old, the first woman premier designate of New Brunswick. I met her husband, John, who's been a stay-at-home dad, raising their 3 girls. He had Taylor Swift bracelets up and down his arms.
Yeah.
They've known each other since middle school, and here they are now, right, in this kind of a situation. It's a remarkable night.
It is.
Jeff, it's a very different story for the Conservatives, where right now Blaine Higgs is still running second in his riding, with 7 of 10 polls reporting. They thought they had a floor of 20 to 22. Right now, they're below that at 16. What are your thoughts on these results so far?
Well, first of all, on behalf of myself and my family and my colleagues, congratulations to Susan and David both for securing their seats. Susan sustained a terribly negative hate attack campaign here in the province of New Brunswick. And I think we see by the results right there that New Brunswickers will not tolerate that type of behavior in our politics. And I think it's even shown in Blaine's own riding. So I think at his first earliest opportunity, he needs to apologize to Susan Holt, the people of New Brunswick, and the caucus.
Do you think he'll do that? I know you were one of the people who left cabinet and caucus and didn't run again because of a disagreement in Blaine Higgs' style, a disagreement in his policies. What do you think we hear from Higgs tonight?
I think you'll hear Blaine obviously come out and acknowledge that he's lost this competition, this election. I think he'll take some time to reflect on it. Obviously, I don't know if we'll hear any apologies. Most times leaders don't apologize for much of anything, but we'll wait and see. I've had some very good colleagues lose their seats tonight. Some of them probably stayed because they felt it was the right thing to do, and that's their choice. They did that. But there's a serious inward look that has to happen with our PC party right now. There's a lot of open wounds and a lot of healing that must be done. And there will be brighter days ahead for the PC party of New Brunswick. I know there will. We've seen big losses before in the past.
Right.
So it's time for reflection, and it's time for an inward look for everybody in the party.
Okay, well, we're going to talk more about that throughout the night. Right now, Blaine Higgs, though, is down by a couple hundred votes in his riding. His vote share is down by 23%, and we're getting pretty deep into the count in his riding. Amanda, your thoughts here. The Greens hoping for growth in seats, hoping for a growth of influence in the government. You have a Liberal majority government that is not dramatically out of alignment, I would say, with some of the policy ideas David Coon has put forward, but not totally in alignment. And it looks like right now you're at 2 seats. What's your reaction on where things are?
Well, obviously really glad that Leader David Coon got back in. Really glad that MLA Megan Mitten is going to be back for a 3rd term. That's really strong. I think the loss of Kevin Arsenault to the New Brunswick legislature is actually going to hurt. There was not a more ardent défenseur of Acadian people and of rural New Brunswick and of agriculture, of fishers, of farmers. I could just go on. Kevin is one of the most passionate people I know, and the voice and the perspective he brought every day to his work definitely, without a doubt, changed the discourse within the legislature. It drastically influenced the Liberal policies that have come forward in this platform, and so that's going to be a loss. I'm sure there will be a way to move forward and advance policies for New Brunswickers.
There was some doubt, Nicole, just to come back to you for a second, about whether or not this would be a change election. And in a lot of the conversations we had throughout the campaign, the four of us here and people I talked to here, like the experts like Jacques, they felt there was a pretty broad range of outcomes, but thought it would be really, really close. You look at where it is right now. This looks and feels like a change election, does it not?
It does. It absolutely does. And I think I was one of the ones who said that this is definitely a change election. And we were talking about advanced polls and how advanced polls can, at least in the old days when before the pandemic, advanced polling, the activity in it was often an indication, right, of change. People want change. They want to get out there and they want to vote and they want to do it early. And I think there was some of that happening with those advanced poll numbers too. So most definitely. And that's what we were hearing at the doors.
Right.
It's time for a change. When my 91-year-old mother says it's time for a change, and she had been a Tory for a long time, it's time for a change.
You got to listen to your mom, right?
You
know what's going on. All right. Thank you there, Claire. That's the reaction there. Jeff Carr saying Blaine Higgs owes an apology to a lot of people. We'll see what the Premier has to say when he speaks later tonight.
Thanks so much, David. That's David Cochran with his Insider panel there tonight. All right, and we do have some more breaking news from the CBC Decision Desk with some more elected projected. All right, we have Susan Holt elected as projection in Fredericton South Silverwood over Nicole Carlin and Simon Ouellette. That is the leader of the Liberal Party, our Premier designate, Susan Holt, winning her seat in Fredericton South Silverwood. And look at that, David Coon, projected elected in his seat of Fredericton Lincoln. David Coon winning his seat tonight, the Green Party leader. And let's check out our final leader. So Blaine Higgs is still trailing in the riding of Quispamsis. Aaron Kennedy still has a lead over Blaine Higgs, PC leader Blaine Higgs. Aaron Kennedy with the Liberal Party is ahead by 163 points at this time. Jacques, Bob.
Well,
talk about change.
New Brunswickers decided they wanted to get rid of this government, and we've all been wondering whether Susan Holt's riding would be close.
Yes.
Three ways, frankly, with a good PC candidate, good Green candidate, Green history, PC history. Voters there just emphatically said, let's do it this way, and the result is clear. And then even in Blaine Higgs's riding, flip it around. At the moment, a critical number of voters there have decided they don't want him around either, as Premier or as MLA.
Or as a candidate.
That is close. That may not hold, but it's an amazing result, and it speaks to, when the mood for change kicks in, it's real. And I was joking today, it's only close until it isn't. And people have really made up their minds today.
Most definitely. Bob, also David Coon in his riding, Fredericton Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of concern that was going to be close, and maybe he could win, maybe he couldn't. He wouldn't have won if, the way the votes were distributed from the last election, but in the end won easily. The thing that really stands out to me is what's happened in St. John. Blaine Higgs' backyard. That is really ground zero of what's happened tonight. The Liberal vote is up almost 30% in the city. They're winning 5 out of 6 seats after winning none last time, only 1 the time before that. And the last I saw, Glenn Savoie was hanging on to the only PC. You could probably take an hour drive from St. John around and not run into a PC riding the way things are going. He had a 30-vote lead with 1 poll remaining. Could be a sweep in St. John by the end of the night. But the people who know Blaine Higgs best, the community around St. John, those cabinet ministers who had enough of him, Trevor Holt, Dorothy Shepherd, boy, it really seemed to resonate with voters in the St. John area and even in Blaine Higgs' own riding. Quite a devastating rebuke from the people who know him best.
Let's check in with Khalil Akhtar with our community stakeholder panel in the kitchen there. They're having some snacks and they have lots to talk about.
We've been sitting here, we've been watching election results come in, and we've been talking. We've been talking about Policy 713, we've been talking about healthcare. In fact, we had expected Claire to have with us a supporter of Blaine Higgs on Policy 713 here at the kitchen table, but unfortunately, She was called away on family business, so wasn't able to be here. But we do have Emmanuel Jackson. Emmanuel Jackson, co-chair of Fredericton Pride. What do you make of this win? What do you make of Susan Holt and her position on Policy 713?
First, I just want to say congratulations. I think it's really important to have our first woman premier in New Brunswick. That's a really historical landmark of our history, and I think that it's really important to have that. Second thing I'd like to say is I do think, however, that the Liberals' stance on Policy 713 is a bit wishy-washy. I think that they could be a little bit more forward in what they think of it.
Yeah, so Susan Holt has not ruled out changes, she says, to Policy 713. What do you think she means?
Honestly, I wish I knew what she meant. I would love to see more forthcoming, strong opinion swing one way or the other. I would obviously prefer that to be in support of not changing Policy 713 back to its original state, back to what it should be, what I believe it should be. And I think that having that strong stance one way or another is better for someone in power.
You consulted on the original policy.
Yes, I did.
We're going to send it back to Claire right now in the studio for some more results.
All right, and we're heading over to the Green Party headquarters in downtown Fredericton at Dolan's Pub there, where Green Party leader David Coon, who has been elected in his own riding, is making his way through the crowd there. We can see him. We can see Simon Ouellette there as well. And David Coon making his way. He's going to be talking to his group of supporters there very shortly. And there he is, Jacques.
There he is, David Coon, re-elected in Fredericton, Lincoln, but he's lost one member of his caucus, a valuable member of his caucus, as Amanda was saying. We were wondering whether he'd make it, and I think in that riding, people, this thing I was talking about, this emphatic desire for change and to vote decisively, in that riding, they clearly made a strategic decision that David Coon was the way to accomplish that.
Because tell us about that riding. That was a different riding.
Well, David Coon's original Fredericton South riding was sliced in two. Half of it's in Fredericton Lincoln, strong Green vote for him, but the other half, Lincoln, strong PC vote, and so it wasn't a sure thing.
I think he's about to talk, and I'm sure he has lots to say. So let's listen in.
What a surprise tonight. Merci à tous d'être là. Thanks everyone for being here. Well, the results are unexpected. I want to start out by thanking the voters of the new riding of Fredericton Lincoln for putting their trust in me to carry their voice into the Legislative Assembly of New Brunswick. And I want to thank my entire local campaign team for the incredible work they did, because of course as leader I was around the province a lot and there was a lot of work to do when I wasn't here, and they did a fantastic job. So thank you, team. By now we all know that Kevin is not going to be going back to the Legislative Assembly, and that's a sad and terrible thing for New Brunswick. C'est horrible pour Nouveau-Brunswick que Kevin Arsenault maintenant ne sera pas une députée pour la circonscription
for member of the Legislative Assembly, but that's the reality.
We can all give Kevin Arsenault a tremendous hand of thanks for the incredible work he has done. Il est un vrai leader du Nouveau-Brunswick, and I know we'll find a role for him, and he'll find a role after the election, I'm sure. I know all the candidates, and I know many of you are here and many of you are watching, have done a tremendous job. Worked so hard with your incredible teams to try and win a seat in this election. And I don't know what to say. It's tough, it's hard, it's heartbreaking. I know when you pour yourself, your blood, sweat, and tears into winning that seat, but it wasn't to be this election. We're building, though. We're continuing to build. And one thing's for sure, we know that Blaine Higgs is no longer the Premier of this province. I called Susan Holt just before I came over here to congratulate her on winning a majority government. And there's a lot of expectations across this province in terms of what government's going to deliver for them, given all of the problems and challenges we face here in our beautiful province. And as one of the opposition parties, the best opposition party, we have an awesome responsibility to push them, to be bold, to push them, to make the investments necessary to actually fix the healthcare system, to push them to serve New Brunswickers in the way they need to be served. Aux gens du Nouveau-Brunswick, je vous écoute, je vous écoute.
New Brunswick, I listen to you, I am listening to you, because every one of you counts. I want to thank you for supporting the Green candidates in your ridings, and I want to thank you for being part of the Democratic project. Thank you for also running as Green candidates.
All of you and those who are watching have spoken with tens of thousands of New Brunswickers at their door. We listened so that we could serve you, New Brunswickers, better in the Legislative Assembly, and that's exactly what we will do. You have my commitment that we will act on what we heard in the Legislative Assembly. We're at a fork in the road in our history in New Brunswick. We chose action over talk. We choose the hope that springs from action rather than the despair that spreads from inaction. But to get to the future we want, we must act together. And we can do so with respect and with mutual understanding. And that is certainly what we will bring to this Legislative Assembly. There's a stubborn strength that runs through all who live in our beautiful province. We just need to funnel that strength in common cause to solve the problems of today and create the future we want for our children and our grandchildren.
Yes.
Je parle d'un projet de société. Oui, il est temps de la réforme et de renouvellement.
Talking about a vision of society, it's time for renewable. We will have to push forward to secure the necessary changes.
And I have cut out for us in the Legislative Assembly in the next session. I want to thank once again all our candidates for stepping up to seek a chance to serve their communities, to offer to represent them in the legislature, and all their campaign teams for running such impressive campaigns across the province. Merci beaucoup à tous. I want to thank our campaign team provincially, led by the incredible Joanne Roberts. Joanne, you've run a campaign of a size and quality that we have never been able to run before in this province. So from the bottom of all of our hearts, thank you. Merci beaucoup. incredible. And finally, I want to thank my family, my wife Janice, my daughters Caroline and Laura, for always being there for me, always. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart. And to you, Laura, in Toronto, I know you're watching. We love you. And I know Mama's watching. She's 92 years old. My mother, Iris, I want to thank her for helping to instill the values in me that have made me the person I am today. So thanks, Mom. I love you. Enjoy the evening. Bonne soirée, because tomorrow we've got work to do.
There we have it. Green Party Leader David Coon.
Volunteers and supporters who have spent so much time and effort in this campaign, but you are the best audience I've ever had.
Talking about his campaign workers, his volunteers, his supporters, his candidates, being the best audience he's ever had. They are jubilant there. It was a very hopeful, very optimistic speech from Green Party leader David Coon, who has won his seat, and the Green Party has won one other seat tonight, thanking his volunteers, thanking New Brunswickers for participating in the democratic process, and also being thankful that he said that Blaine Higgs was no longer the Premier. Bob, we are waiting for PC Leader Blaine Higgs to come. You'll see that little box at the bottom of your screen there. That's Quispam Sis, and we hear that PC Leader Blaine Higgs is expected to arrive shortly. Bob, I'd like to talk to you, though, first.
Well, Claire, I'm sure the Green Party's disappointed with the showing tonight, but you only have to look down the list a little bit to see how bad things can get for third parties in New Brunswick. The NDP tonight, 1% of the vote. People's Alliance, 1% of the vote. For the Greens to hang in this election, survive with 2 seats, in these elections where the public is moving in en masse from one major party to another, it's easy to get run over. And the history of third parties in New Brunswick is that they rise up and then evaporate. It's so hard to put down roots, but boy, the Green Party has been sticking it out, and they continue to elect members, only a couple, but that's enough so you can live to fight for another day. So really, given the context of what the Liberals have put together tonight, for the Greens to hang on, not get run over, elect 2 members, honestly, I feel it's not a terrible result for the party.
Mm-hmm. And he talked a lot about building and continuing and building upon this. Jacques.
Yeah, let's look at the 3 ridings where Green incumbents were running tonight. We're going to start with, Kent North. So this is the one they lost, yes. Kent North. Kevin Arsenault, really the party's most fiery speaker, a very unorthodox politician in many ways, and their ambassador to Northern and Francophone New Brunswick. So he's gone, that's a big loss. Pat Finnegan, former Liberal MP, highly regarded in Rogersville, so not really a shock, but this is a blow to the Greens.
And they haven't quite lost it. We haven't sort of done a projected elected. Yes,
yes, that's true. It's a comfortable lead, but 1 poll left to report, 700 approximately to votes difference right now. So it's not officially elected, but it's not looking good for Kevin Arsenault. No, and then we have Megan Mitten in Tantramar. She nearly doubled the vote of the Liberal candidate. She is elected. One of 2 deputy leaders. Everyone in the Green Caucus was either a leader or a deputy leader. But Megan Mitten is heading back to the legislature. That riding has changed. The Liberal areas of the old riding are gone, so she's even more of a solid lock there. She's going back to the legislature. And then we have, of course, as we just saw, David Coon. There were questions about whether he might get get beat in this riding, but he is comfortable. Well, he's elected. What Bob says is true, that the Greens have hung on now for yet another election. However, they were kind of hoping for a minority government where they would get to call some of the shots in the legislature. And so in that sense, this falls short of what might have been for Green influence over the next provincial government.
Thanks so much, Jacques. Let's head over to David Cochran now and see what his panel of insiders has to say about all of this.
All right, Claire, thank you very much. Amanda, I want to start with you. We just heard from David Coon, the Green leader. They did not grow in seats, lost a seat, and it's not a minority government where they have the leverage on the direction of government. But you heard the crowd chanting, nah, 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 hey, hey, goodbye, about Blaine Higgs. Explain that dynamic inside the Green Party.
Well, I think that in itself is, from a Green perspective, a victory. Obviously, the Greens had a lot of criticism about the direction Higgs was taking the province, and a lot of different ideas about where we should be going instead. So I think, Higgs being gone was kind of goal number one, and that has happened. We've had a change in government. The Greens are ready to roll up their sleeves and work no matter who is in government, and I think that's what makes them stand out amongst politicians. There is a general attitude in New Brunswick where, we're not in government, wash our hands, can't do anything for the next 4 years, we just kind of sit here. And anyone who's been on this, anyone who pays attention to politics in New Brunswick knows that the Greens don't work that way. They show up every day prepared to debate, to fight, to bring forward policy, and the kicker is it doesn't always come around as Green policy, but those ideas do get incorporated and brought back in. So there is a substantial influence on policy in the province.
A celebration, even with a bit of a retreat, but 2 seats out of the 49, which is 13.7% of the vote. I'm going to put you all on alert. We're told Blaine Higgs is coming out any minute. Right now, he is still behind in Quispamsis. Jeff, what do you think we're going to see? I know you said earlier that you thought he should apologize for the way he ran his campaign. What do you think we're going to hear from Blaine Higgs when we see him?
I think he's going to be shocked. I think that he is going to be totally shocked. I don't think he believes that he could have lost. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. In his defense, he does feel like he has done a lot to move the needle for New Brunswick and New Brunswickers. So he would genuinely tell you that if he was out and about, and he would rattle off to you some of the statistics or some of the things that he has done. But as I had said in previous episodes and panels that we've been on, if your message isn't resonating out with New Brunswickers, if all they're seeing is one thing, then you can't get your message. You can't be successful with that. And I think he will be a little shocked, unless he's known for the last week or two the numbers that...
Jeff, there he is, Blaine Higgs entering his campaign headquarters in Quispamsis. We're going to go back to Claire at the desk.
Okay, and let's go right to Quispamsis. There's PC leader Blaine Higgs coming in, greeting people. We're looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
This is a speech that we really need to watch because it's an obvious question whether he will step down as leader tonight after this defeat and being behind in his riding. He already said that if he didn't win this election, his entire time in office was a waste. So he could give us a very different kind of speech than what we're used to in concession speeches.
Interesting.
You have the final poll reporting in his riding. He still trails Aaron Kennedy, so based on all the polls in, he will have lost this seat.
Okay. Let's listen in.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for being here tonight. It's certainly not the night we'd hoped for. Nevertheless, it is what it is. So the people of New Brunswick have spoken, and I have called and congratulated Susan Holt and her team on their victory. Susan, you've earned the trust of the people, and I wish her here every success as she takes on the challenges that lie ahead. I'm proud of the campaign we ran, one that was focused on making New Brunswick a better place for all of us. We set out to continue the work we started over the past few years, improving healthcare, building our economy, and ensuring a brighter future for the next generation. We have record numbers of people coming to our province now. We have a foundation to build on economically, a province that was severely in debt and spiraling in the wrong direction. We've certainly seen investment that has grown in our province to private sectors coming here and setting up. Record number of kids in schools. We were closing schools in 18, opening schools, now building many more. So the province is on a trajectory that will move it forward. And I'm really hoping that Susan Holt and her Liberal colleagues will continue that path, because New Brunswick deserves a bright future. So, as we talk about, the outcome that it wasn't what we'd hoped for, I am deeply grateful to the tireless efforts of many, many people on the team, many volunteers that have worked throughout the entire campaign cycle, throughout this entire election, with the hope that we would continue the progress that we've made to date. To our candidates, our volunteers, and every supporter who believed in our message that it was important to keep building New Brunswick. Our candidates around the province, I know it's a tough loss. The quality of candidates that we had running this time were second to none. I've seen such amazing people step forward. To our candidates that have won, I congratulate you, and I encourage you to keep the torch burning and to rebuild our party and to keep New Brunswick strong by being an opposition that is stronger than ever by holding the whole government to account. So tonight's result, obviously we'll start the process of leadership transition within PCNB. I will have discussion in the days ahead with my caucus, the party leadership, and my family about the next steps and how to proceed. After those discussions are complete, I will make a formal announcement. Some of the issues are already predetermined, so it won't be a newsflash. But I guess I want to say that through all of this, I have to resort back to a couple that have been with me from the very beginning. That's Paul and Therese Destu. And, amazing support have guided us throughout this 14 years now. And I guess, all things come to an end at some point. But our friendship won't end. And I hope my friendship won't end with all of you and all the people in Quispamsis, certainly where we still reside. I also want to thank my loving wife. It's been a very stressful month for her. and she's, I have joked around through this that, she said, well, I don't know quite what I'll do with you in retirement. So now she'll be thinking that, probably staying awake tonight. Now what am I really going to do with this guy? So many things left undone, on our path to fix the province. So there's lots of work to do for any new government, and I'm only hoping that will continue. I also want to thank my daughters that are here tonight, Laura and Rachel. My two other daughters aren't here with me tonight. They're both traveling abroad, but it's wonderful to have family support, which I've had through the entire time in office, and actually through my entire life. 4 most wonderful daughters and a wife that 46 years and counting. So it's pretty impressive. So as we look forward, again, I just say thanks to each and every one of you. May God ask his blessing certainly on this province. We have a wonderful province. We have a lot to be thankful for. We have, we've seen people find our province for the first time internationally, nationally, and it's growing in leaps and bounds. And, I'm honored to have been in office while that has been going on, and I wouldn't have done it, been able to do it without the tremendous support from so many volunteers, so many people dedicated to the cause. And we stand for what we believe in. Maybe we fall for what we believe in, but we don't lose our conviction in the process. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I will. Sure. Okay. Very good.
And there is PC Leader Blaine Higgs reflecting on not the night he hoped for. He said that he's deeply grateful to the tireless efforts of his party and all those who helped campaign. He says that he's congratulated Susan Holt and wished her all the best success. He touched on what he says are the successes and accomplishments of his past government, and he said that there would be discussions about leadership transition within the PCMB party and how to proceed with next steps, but encouraged his party to keep the torch burning. We are going to head over to downtown Fredericton, the Green Party headquarters right now, where Green Party leader David Coon is there. Hello, how are you?
Good evening. I'm great, thanks.
Good evening. So it was a good night for you in your riding, Mr. Coon.
Well, I'm very appreciative of the people of the new riding in Fredericton Lincoln for putting their confidence in me to represent them in the legislature.
Mr. Coon, you did have three MLAs in the last legislature. You're down one. How do you continue to reach the francophones in New Brunswick without Kevin Arsenault?
Well, as we have and will continue to do so, there's no particular concern there. We will continue to play our role in opposition as the voice of reason and ensure that the new Liberal government actually takes the actions necessary to solve some of the biggest challenges we're facing, like our healthcare crisis. We'll ensure that they act boldly and urgently.
And so, Mr. Coon, what are the main things that you're going to concentrate as soon as there is a new sitting of the legislature?
Well, number one priority is to begin the work to fix the healthcare system, and we need to move quickly with a certain sense of urgency, and the new government needs to be willing to make the generational investment necessary to save our healthcare system and save the people who are losing their lives and facing unnecessary suffering because of a very broken system.
Mm-hmm. Now, if this had been a minority government tonight, there was a chance that you might have held the balance of power. Obviously, that is not the case tonight.
That's right. So we will, as we have done in majority governments before, play our role as a strong opposition voice, providing critical solutions and bringing forward legislation as private members that will make a difference for New Brunswickers.
Mm-hmm. And I guess finally, Mr. Coon, what do you see as your biggest challenges in building your party moving forward now that you're down one? You talked a lot about building and continuing on the growth of the Green Party. How do you plan to do that?
Well, we will continue to build the party as we have been. We've had more people involved in this campaign than ever before. So we'll be getting together shortly after this, after the election night, and planning our path forward.
Thank you so much for talking to me tonight, Mr. Coon.
Nice speaking with you.
And we are right now waiting for Premier-designate Susan Holt to arrive right now. Bob, Jacques, we're waiting for her to arrive.
That's right, we are. But in one way, she really has arrived.
She has indeed.
I mean, she has arrived.
She has.
And while we're waiting for her, I just want to circle back to the mention of her as the first woman premier of New Brunswick.
Yeah.
You know, and seeing Aldea Landry there, who, as Jean said, was the highest elective office holder of among women in New Brunswick until now, and I just want to give a nod to the moms out there, watching with their daughters, seeing this happen in real time for the first time. This does not mean that all the gender issues in the province have been solved or equality's been achieved, but those daughters are going to tell their daughters that they saw this on TV and they saw something that has never happened before in New Brunswick. And so I don't think we can underestimate or downplay the meaning of this. I've covered 9 elections now. I've seen a lot of women candidates, a few party leaders. I'm sure they've all wondered at some time when this would happen. And I'm sure all of them, regardless of party, are thinking tonight that it finally has happened. And to some degree, despite partisan differences, they are celebrating, maybe a little quietly within themselves, but it's a huge moment. It's a threshold cross, and once you cross this threshold, you you don't go back from it. It's happened, and that's a big deal.
It is a very big deal. Bob, your thoughts tonight?
Well, it is, I mean, we have a couple of historic kind of moments here. That speech, very dejected, Blaine Higgs. For him to lose his seat in this way is reminiscent of Richard Hatfield back in 1987 when he tried the one last election and just blew up the party in the process. Higgs has not left things as tattered as Hatfield did, but boy, a devastating loss tonight with Higgs going down himself. That's an historic moment in itself, but not to overshadow what Susan Holt has accomplished tonight and what it means, not just in short-term political terms in New Brunswick, Liberals win, PC's out, but for a woman to become premier in the province after so many years, and after so many provinces have achieved that, it's just different, significant, and we pay attention to that. The first woman elected in New Brunswick legislature in 1967, Brenda Robertson, we just had a bridge named after her. So we'll be talking about Susan Holt years and years and years from now.
In fact, Brenda Robertson's grandson Will messaged me, and coming up in a couple of days is the 57th anniversary of her election to the legislature in 1967 as the first ever woman MLA.
Very good. This is a night in history. This is a night in New Brunswick history. Susan Holt, Premier Designate Susan Holt, the first woman in New Brunswick history to become Premier of New Brunswick. Let's go to David Cochran.
So, Claire, obviously, the Liberals winning the election here in New Brunswick has the federal Liberals paying attention to this. And we have reaction from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who the reports of his negative influence on this campaign appear to have been greatly exaggerated. He says, congratulations to New Brunswick's next Premier, Susan Holt. We've got work ahead to build more homes, protect our official languages, and improve health care for New Brunswickers. I'm looking forward to working with you and your Liberal team to make it happen. I should say Dominic LeBlanc, the cabinet minister, one of the cabinet ministers here from New Brunswick, says he just spoke to New Brunswick's Premier-designate Susan Holt to congratulate her on her historic election. Looking forward to getting to work with her on New Brunswickers' priorities. And for no reason whatsoever, Claire, I'm going to highlight that Mark Carney has tweeted his congratulations to the next Premier of New Brunswick, Susan Holt, and to all of your New Brunswick Liberal team. Looking forward to working with you on bold, positive ideas for New Brunswick's future and for an even better Canada. And to wrap it all up, Christy Clark, who suddenly in the news is considering a possible leadership bid for that party should Justin Trudeau leave, says many congratulations to Susan Holt, the first woman ever elected Premier of New Brunswick, a former female Premier herself. Kindest regards coming to you from the first woman ever elected Premier in British Columbia. So there you go. There's a wrap-up of reaction from federal Liberals, rumored to be maybe federal liberal leadership candidates. We'll see how the rest of this week plays out. We're going to bring in the panel a bit, though, I think. Are we doing that, or are we going back to Claire?
Yes, I'd love to hear from the panel, David.
All right, we're going to bring in the panel. I do like the federal liberal reaction angle, but Jeff, I want to talk to you. You said, there are some people who work for the National Post saying I said it, but you said that Blaine Higgs should come out and apologize for the campaign that he ran and the way he talked about Susan Holt throughout this campaign. He did not do that. He said that he is proud of the campaign that I ran and suggested that leadership transition is about to begin in his party. What did you make of what?
No, you could see he's shocked. He really is shocked. It's a damning blow, especially for a leader that believes that they're going to win, believes they're on the right track, believes that everything that they're doing is what New Brunswickers or the electorate want, and you can never take the electorate for granted. You never can. I'm shocked that he didn't resign tonight. He should have did the right thing and did it tonight and let the process begin right away, because the PC Party of New Brunswick has a lot of work to do. I'd also be interested in understanding what he means by the leadership at PCMB and the transition in that. Does that mean the executive director goes, the president goes?
Well, clearly he goes, right? He lost his government. He's lost his seat. He can't credibly stay as leader, right?
He has no choice. And in all fairness to him, he'll make the decision when he does that and at the right time. You lose your seat and you lose. It's the worst loss that our caucus has faced in 30 years.
We are standing by waiting for Premier-designate Susan Holt to address her supporters at a hotel in downtown Fredericton, an historic night for the Liberal Party of New Brunswick, a historic night for her. So, Nicole, I want to get to you in just 1 second, but I want to quickly ask you, Jeff Kerr, there will be a leadership race. You had been in cabinet. Is this something you might consider? I know you have two brothers as well, this is the first election in New Brunswick without a car on the ballot in 29 years. Any of you or your two brothers, your 3-car garage, want to seek this leadership?
Well, 2 of the 3 of us have transitioned out of politics quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed my summer just doing my constituency work and sitting on the sidelines watching. I think it's way too early to make those type of decisions right now.
When you look at who's left, is it the type of party you have a place in right now?
It's workable with some of those MLAs that are there. They're just trying to do the best they can for their constituents, and they want to carry on doing that. I wanted to do that as well.
Right.
I did not want to leave my constituents without a good MLA. They all wanted to do the same thing, but I made the decision that I made that I wasn't going to run again for Blaine Higgs based on what we just saw here tonight.
Okay. Nicole Pico, to talk about the change we are seeing tonight. A Liberal government elected in New Brunswick, the first woman Premier designate in Susan Holt. What's it going to be like for you to watch her come out and deliver that victory speech tonight?
It's going to be extremely emotional, and I'm already getting choked up a little bit. But it was merited. It was deserved. It's a well-run, well-fought campaign, and she deserves this. She really does. She's been passionate about her love for New Brunswick. She's been passionate about wanting change and wanting to do things better. She's passionate about her team and having a team approach to this. It was talked about earlier in the broadcast, and it's absolutely true. I've seen it unfold, and it's been remarkable. So yes, I didn't bring the Kleenex, but there'll probably be a tear or two when I hear her speak.
We heard a lot from her throughout this campaign, offering this collaborative tone, reaching out to unions, reaching out to First Nations, reaching out to Greens, reaching out to disaffected progressive conservatives.
Right.
What do you think she's going to say tonight? Do you think it'll be a continuation of that message? Because a result like this comes with some pretty high expectations as well.
I would think absolutely she will continue that. It's interesting with that big a caucus. It gets interesting, right? And she will definitely have some serious thinking to do. Her team of candidates was excellent. There are some really, really strong folks who have been brought in, and it's going to be a tough choice. But I think you're going to see some really interesting policy, good legislative work, good work in continuing to listen to New Brunswickers and to responding to New Brunswickers. I think that's what's been missing.
Look, she hasn't even given her victory speech yet.
No.
But I'm going to ask you, she's got to start picking a cabinet soon.
Yeah, she does.
Finance, health, and education are 3 that jump to mind based on the direction of this campaign.
Yeah.
Who do you think would be leading contenders? Let's start with finance.
I think finance, potentially Renee Lagasse or...
in Bathurst?
In Bathurst, yeah. He could be interesting at that.
Do you think Dr. John Dornan comes into the health portfolio?
I certainly do think that's a significant consideration, absolutely.
Right.
Education, I'm not so sure. Benoit Bourque has been in the education portfolio, has been the critic for that. That could be an interesting choice, too. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of new blood, too, and a lot of really interesting new ideas that are going to be coming in. So she does have a job ahead of her.
Because I'm a Newfoundlander, I have to get the Newfoundland angle into all of this. Dr. John Dornan, who won in one of the St. John seats, his brother Robert Dornan was Roger Grimes' chief of staff when Roger Grimes was the Liberal premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. So the East Coast is small, people, and the Liberal circles are even smaller.
It is. It's true.
Amanda, we heard from David Coon there beforehand. He said that we will hold the Liberals accountable to act boldly and urgently, in particular on the healthcare file. This is something people automatically associate the Greens with climate, but healthcare has been something David Coon has been a hardcore champion on, certainly in this campaign, promising to run a deficit for a couple of years to shore up the staffing shortages. Where do you think he starts pushing Susan Holt for action first?
Recruitment and retention, I think, is is the top concern. We can promise all the healthcare clinics we want in the world, but if we don't recruit and retain, and that comes down to having money to pay them properly, and that goes above and beyond a $15,000 retention bonus. That means actual wage increases. That means refiguring out how we're actually paying our health professionals. I think that's going to be, in fixing the healthcare file, I think that's one of the top concerns is as much as Higgs liked to say that it wasn't, money is actually an issue here. Wages wages are an issue.
Yeah, and every premier in every province and every territory is all competing for the same group of workers, so the challenge is universal right across the country. All right, Claire, that's the reaction from the panel there. I can see people hugging outside of a doorway on the bottom of the screen. So Susan Holt, the premier designate, likely here soon on this historic night in New Brunswick.
Likely indeed. Thanks so much, David. The CBC's David Cochran. Let's head over to Robert Jones now. When and where did the Liberals win tonight? Where and how?
Well, their vote total is up and seat total up, obviously. Let's just look where this has happened in New Brunswick. This is the vote total, 48.5%, and the North, obviously, 67% of the vote. Barely budged from the last election because they've always been strong up there. But look particularly, in my view, St. John, 49% of the vote, up 27 points from the last election. They've won 5 of 6 seats in St. John. And if we go to the Greater Moncton area, 55% of the vote, that's up 16 points, 7 of 8 seats in Moncton. So they have really feasted on the cities and really up everywhere in the vote total all over the province. Really, it's obviously a wave of sentiment that the entire province was kind of feeling and acting on at the same time. It's produced different levels of seat changes, but really centered in that St. John area, really very definite rejection of Blaine Higgs, Conservative Party, and in some ways a vote of confidence in those PC ministers who faced him down, resigned, left. I can't work with this man anymore. And they appear to have taken many of their voters with them.
Feasted on the cities. I love that. Jacques.
It was a 3-course meal.
It was a 3-course meal.
Let's take a look at some potential Liberal cabinet ministers, because that's where Susan Holt's mind is going to go now, and we heard about it from the panel, but we've got 4 ridings here. Francine Landry from Northwest New Brunswick, from Madawaska, Leilac, Edmundston, early supporter of Susan Holt, endorsed her for the leadership. From that corner of the province, she is likely a shoo-in to be in cabinet. And now let's move over to Bathurst. A long time ago on a radio political panel, I referred to René Legacy as one of the MVPs of the legislature.
Yes.
Very astute, serious, finance critic. It's easy to imagine him, as Nicole Picot said, at finance. Another one might be natural resources and energy. David Hickey in St. John, you know, he's a city councillor, young, telegenic, might go into local government or some other portfolio. And then I think it's hard to avoid the topic of St. John Portland Simons and Dr. John Dornan as a potential health minister in the Susan Holt government after picking up that seat that was held by the PCs for a quarter of a century. She's going to want to put people in key positions that can also hold these ridings in 2028. I know it's early to talk about that, but John Dornan certainly is on everybody's list to go into cabinet.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jacques. Let's head over to Quispamsis right now and the CBC's Hadil Ibrahim, who is there. Hadil, how's the feeling there?
Hi, Claire. Well, it was certainly, it switched up very fast. You know, there was a little bit of excitement at the beginning, and then it just went downhill when the results started coming in. To give me a little bit more of an idea, I'm here with Steve Outhouse. He is the campaign manager. What happened?
Yeah, well, I think we knew going into it was going to be a difficult race. I mean, we've been in power for 6 years. Governments naturally kind of come with the longer you're in power, the more frustrated people can get with different topics and different issues. And so we knew coming into it, that's a challenge that we'd have going, into the election campaign. So we tried to make the best case that we could, that Premier Higgs was the right person to continue leading the province, that we had a plan that would help make life more affordable, that there'd be realistic changes to healthcare, and ultimately we put that to the voters, and the voters decided, and they've decided to go in a different direction, and we'll respect that.
All right, so I believe that I have one more question for you. What role did 713 play here?
Yeah, well, 713 was actually very popular overall with the electorate, but that wasn't the deciding factor for most people in this election.
I'm sorry about that. I'm going to have to give it back to Claire here because we're hearing that Holt is coming in. So, Claire, back to you.
Thanks so much, Hadil. And that is Hadil Ibrahim at the Quispamsis. And there we see her Premier-designate Susan Holt and her family arriving downtown Fredericton at party headquarters. The first woman premier in New Brunswick history. Elected with a Liberal majority tonight.
Yes, indeed. You know, she worked hard for this. She wasn't even supposed to win the Liberal leadership. There was another candidate, TJ Harvey, that was favored by some of the insiders in the party, but she amassed, you know, older Liberals like Rolly McIntyre and Aldea Landry, you know, elder statespersons of the party, a lot of young people, a lot of new people, and she clawed her way on the fourth round of voting, or fourth round of counting in that leadership race to capture the leadership, I think with 51% of the vote. It was not easy. There she is hugging Aldea Landry, again, Deputy Minister in the McKenna government. Until now, the highest holder of the highest elective office by a woman in New Brunswick history, and that's going to change when Susan Holt is sworn in. You can see some of these women behind Susan Holt. We were at her headquarters the other day. She had this band of women of a certain age, let's say, who were out there knocking on doors for her all the time while she was going around the province. They really wanted to see Susan Holt win. They wanted to see a woman premier, and they're getting it. And this is quite a scene here. But she was counted out and in the leadership race, and it was a dramatic day when she won it. And now, you know, we weren't sure she was going to win today, and here she is.
Winning a Liberal majority, winning her seat. First woman premier. Look at her, she's triumphant, and the crowd is wild with excitement. This is a moment in history. This is one of those remember when moments. And she's greeting, everybody wants a hug from Susan Holt tonight. She campaigned on change, and New Brunswick voters, they said they wanted it. She said she was campaigning with a team approach, Team Holt, and her team showed up at the polls. The CBC's Jean Armstrong is there, somewhere in the crowd. Jean, where are you?
Hi, Claire. I was right at the door when she and her 3 daughters and husband John walked in the room, huge smiles on their face, you know, and we've been seeing all night these shirts that say "In My Red Era," which is, of course, a reference to Taylor Swift. Taylor was, you know, the music that was blaring when they walked through that crowd that swarmed the family. So it really does feel like we're in the red era, at least in this room tonight. You know, it's electric. There's so many young women in this room. It's overwhelming. Like when you look at the crowd, and just on the stage, as you can see there, you know, there's so many people there to greet her. Part of her team, volunteers. I'm just trying to see the faces there. There's Chief Alan Polchis on the stage there to the left. Yes. And I actually just spoke to Susan's mother, just unbelievably proud of her. Her 2 best friends, you know, sitting beside her on the couch when the news happened. So proud of her tonight. So it's really an amazing energy in the room.
Look at all those phones capturing the moment. Look at that. Let's listen in.
Well, Alan, merci beaucoup. Thank you, New Brunswick. I want to thank every voter, every person who came out and exercised their right to vote and participate to keep our democracy strong. Thank you to everyone who voted. And a special thank you to everyone who voted for Team Holt and our amazing candidates that we elected tonight. Je veux aussi remercier chaque candidat.
I also want to thank every candidate who stood up and decided to run for the party. That's something incredible to do.
That put their name on a ballot and offered to serve New Brunswick. Thank you. I have to thank the people with whom this could never be possible, and that is the volunteers. Politics is a work of volunteers. It is people who show up and knock on doors and make calls, and there were thousands and thousands of them, and we could not have done this without you. So many of you are here. Merci aux bénévoles. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to the volunteers. Thank you so much.
I would also like to thank Mr. Blaine Higgs for his service to New Brunswick over these past 6 years. And offer my congratulations to David Coon on his re-election. I look forward to working with him in the legislature. There's 2 special thank yous that I'd like to make, if I may, to the people of Fredericton South Silverwood, the community where I grew up, where I learned to ski, to play piano, to do a whole bunch of things. Thank you very much for choosing me to be your MLA. Et puis je veux aussi remercier le monde du
I want to also thank you, people from the riding of Bathurst, who gave me the opportunity to enter the legislature. My family and I, we love all those people. You are an incredible community, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
I also want to take a moment to recognize a couple particular people who came before me. Brenda Robertson. Shirley Dysart, the first leader of the Liberal Party. Elizabeth Weir, the first woman to lead in the legislature. Aldea Landry. And all the women who came before me to make tonight possible. C'est une occasion extraordinairement spéciale pour moi, pour mes 3 filles, Molly, Paige, puis Brooke, et leurs amis qui sont ici aussi. There's so many young girls that thank you, Aldea, and Shirley, and Elizabeth, and Barbara. I have to thank my incredible team of candidates. We had the most amazing group of candidates, and I want to take a minute to recognize them. Gilles Lepage, Reste Gauche Ouest, Guy Arsenault, Reste Gauche Est, Marco Leblanc, René Lagacé, Luc Robichaud, Isabelle Thériault, Éric Mallet, Keith Chesson, Véronique Arsenault, Sam Johnson,
Pat Finnegan,
Jacques Leblanc, Robert Gauvin, John Hyam, Natasha Vautour, Rod McKee, Claire Johnson, Scott Grant, Dave Guthrow. I keep working my way through. Connie Larson, Mark Hambrook. And keep going. We're now into St. John. David Hickey, David Alston, John Dornan, Allison Townsend, Aaron Kennedy, Kate Wilcott, Brian Stevenson, Patty Borthwick, Troy Lyons, Chris Duffy, Marissa Palkey, Julian Moulton, Luke Randall, Tanya Whitney, Joni Legier, Cindy Miles, Stephen Horseman. Got Chris Duffy. I got Cindy. I think I got John Herron. That's a risky move, trying to remember all 48 and just do it off the top of your head. I got Tanya. Two Tanyas, Whitney and Sodi. We had an incredible team. My heart is broken for the people that we weren't able to elect tonight. I want to recognize those folks. I'm going to be talking to you soon. Thank you for standing up with our team and for New Brunswickers. And congratulations to my team members that won tonight. This is the hardest one, but it's the biggest one. I have to thank John Holt. This man who has been dying to be called Mr. New Brunswick. Et je vais le dire en français parce qu'il a pris 777 jours à apprendre le français.
And he spent 777 days learning French. He is working for you, New Brunswickers.
I couldn't do this without him. I know everyone in this room knows it, that I couldn't do this without him, that we couldn't do this without him. He is the other half of this little team Holt, and he puts his heart and soul into our family and our neighbors every day with very little thanks. He has believed in me since we were 16 years old. And I would not be here if it wasn't for him. So I love you. Thank you. Let's go. I also want to say two other particular things to these three amazing ladies, Molly, Paige, and Brooke. I am obviously incredibly proud of my girls. They have been phenomenal throughout this roller coaster, and there's going to be a roller coaster ahead. So I want to take a minute to ask the public and the media, my mama bear is going to come out, please treat my children with care. Because they are sacrificing for New Brunswick, and they are very special people, and I hope that you will treat them as gently as they deserve to be treated, as every kid in New Brunswick deserves to be treated. Tonight's results make it clear. New Brunswickers are ready for a change. Les Néo-Brunswickois veulent un changement. Ils veulent quelque chose de différent de notre politique. Et c'est à nous de livrer une nouvelle politique. Parce qu'il y a des espoirs dans notre communauté. Il y a du monde qui nous a donné une opportunité avec une vision d'un travail collaboratif sur le terrain, local. We don't take it lightly that you have put your trust in myself and my team, and that you have hope for a brighter future. But that hope I know is short-lived, and it is going to be on us to deliver authentically, on the ground, openly and transparently. It's going to be on us to bring the change that you're asking for every day and everything we communicate with you. But I know we can do it with teamwork. I know we can do it with a focus on the people of New Brunswick. The people of New Brunswick that are our biggest asset. C'est vous autres qu'on fait ce travail.
You are the ones that do the work.
Cette campagne a démontré qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire
This
avec une équipe qui
campaign
travaille
has shown
ensemble et qui
what
va
can happen with a team that works together, with every candidate, every region working together.
49 unique ridings that deserve to have a government that's going to treat their riding with respect and know that it's not going to be the same what we do in Moncton and the Miramichi. It's not going to be the same, the politics we put in place for Saint-Jean de Saint-Quentin, parce que notre province est le plus beau province du monde, du tour du Canada.
Our province is the most beautiful province in Canada.
Notre province mérite un service
Our
local,
province deserves local service and local government that are there for you.
Okay, last one. We're going to skip ahead. Thank you. Couple commitments I want to make to you. We are going to lead with balance. We're going to watch the bottom line and deliver fiscal responsibility while we invest in the services that you need, like healthcare and education and an affordable place to call home. Nous allons avoir un gouvernement avec un équilibre. On va balancer le budget et on va investir dans vos priorités de soins de santé, du système d'éducation, du logement abordable,
Education,
pour que tout le monde
healthcare,
peut avoir une vie
and affordable
saine et
housing so
abordable
that
ici dans la
everyone
belle
can
province du
have an
Nouveau-Brunswick.
affordable life here in New Brunswick.
I love this province. I have loved this province since I was very little. And I got to wear a New Brunswick flag on a jacket when I was 12 years old and go out to Saskatchewan to sing the praises of this place, thanks to Philip Sexsmith and the amazing program that he put together. And then I got to put on a rugby jersey for New Brunswick when I was 17 and 18 years old, and I was so proud to wear our province's flag and compete in Canada with my colleagues. J'adore cette province. J'ai un gros amour pour cette province.
This province. I have a deep love for this province. The Holt team loves this province.
I love you. I love you, New Brunswick. And with me, you're going to get a leadership that listens and a leadership that cares, a leadership that will respect you, n'importe quelle langue vous parlez.
Whatever language you speak.
No matter who you love or how you identify. No matter where you live. No matter the color of your skin. N'importe quelle couleur de votre peau. Où vous habitiez, la langue
Wherever you live, whatever the color of your skin, whomever you love, with a Holt Liberal government, we're going to have the kind of leadership that you can trust.
You're going to have a leadership that loves you and that you can put your trust in. I ask you to put your trust in me and my team. I thank you for putting your trust in my team and I. We are going to do the very best we can. We are going to work our butts off on day one. A new day and a brighter future is coming to New Brunswick tomorrow. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Williwan. Willallen. Thank you.
There we see the crowd still congratulating Premier Designate Susan Holt. An impassioned speech.
That was the Susan Holt that won this election because she went all out for 32 days. She toured the whole province during the summer, just unstoppable, and that was who we saw tonight.
It certainly was. We're just going to pause here for just a second, and we're going to say goodbye to our viewers on News Network. The National is next, and if you're watching us anywhere else, the show continues right after this. Bob, what do you make of Susan Holt's speech there tonight?
You know, I think it gives maybe people who weren't that familiar a good sense of who she is, really very hands-on, detail-oriented. The fact that she could go through every riding and name the candidate that the party was running shows you how plugged in she is to every little detail about the campaign. You know, she's like that with policy. She built her own leadership campaign. She's, you know, she is running her own show, and she is in charge. There's no question about that. And full value for the win tonight. And boy, she will be a force for the Liberal MLAs to deal with. They're going to have to explain themselves, the ministers, in terms of what they're doing, because she's going to want to know all the details. That's the kind of person that she's in. Very able, bright, and studies the material top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, and she did stress throughout this campaign her team-based approach.
Absolutely. I mean, she really made a virtue of these candidates she recruited. A lot of them were very well known, you know, Dr. John Dornan, for example. And it was a contrast with the Higgs government, which saw so many ministers leave unhappy with the Premier's leadership, the one-man show line, the top-down thing. And she really made an effort to convey that she would listen to everybody. In fact, her summer tour, she talked a lot about what she was hearing from people more than what she said she would do. And she developed this long list of issues to talk about. So the contrast was very clear. I mean, also the contrast of a younger woman against a 70-year-old Premier helped her as well. But that team approach, Team Holt, she, of course, was at the center of the brand, and we'll see what kind of a Premier's office she runs. Once you're in power, it becomes very tempting to hold that power close. But for now, Team Holt, a lot of good candidates got elected tonight, a lot of talented MLAs, a lot of talented newcomers. It's going to be very interesting to see what this government looks like.
It's a talker. Lots of people are going to be talking about this election and the results of this election, and certainly our community panel of stakeholders with the CBC's Khalil Akhtar are no exception. They are talking about it. Let's go to them and see what they're saying tonight. Khalil.
Thanks very much, Claire. Yes, we've been watching all evening, watching that speech from Susan Holt. Dr. Chris Goodyear, surgeon at the Chalmers Hospital in Fredericton. What is your advice for Susan Holt on healthcare?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Susan and the Liberal team for a victory tonight. I think my advice to her, and I heard it in her speech, two key words, transparency and openness. So when making decisions around healthcare and funding healthcare, the process needs to be open and transparent so that all healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, other healthcare workers, are made aware of why the decisions that are being made in a very open and transparent way. We know it's going to cost money. We are the lowest spending province in the country right now in terms of per capita health care. It's not going to be cheap. As our population ages, we know that we have to spend the money to look after them and provide access to New Brunswickers to health care. But my advice to her is take the advice that she just provided in her speech and be open and honest and transparent with New Brunswickers and healthcare providers.
Blaine Higgs throughout this campaign has said money will not fix this. We can spend a lot of money on healthcare and not fix the problem. What do you think he means, and what do you think Susan Holt should take from that?
I agree that I hear a lot of people say you just cannot toss a lot of money at the system and hope that it's going to work. And I think most people in the healthcare system agree with that as well. The money needs to be spent wisely, but it still needs to be spent. We are at the bottom in healthcare spending in Canada. Our population is one of the oldest in Canada. We, again, said this 30 years ago when we knew that the baby boomer population was going to age and come with a vengeance in terms of their healthcare needs, and that issue is here now. And you know, throughout my lifetime as a physician, I've seen progressive governments kick that can down the road, and now we're paying the price for it. So again, it is going to cost money. The money needs to be spent wisely with measured outcomes, and we need to start collecting data in our healthcare system to spend that money wisely.
I just want to touch on one of the tent poles of this campaign, the promise to open healthcare clinics, some 30-odd healthcare clinics, multidisciplinary clinics across this province. What is the biggest challenge to making that happen?
Human resources. We have physical spaces to have clinics all around the province. We know that healthcare, that family doctors and nurse practitioners would rather work in a collaborative care clinic. That's a model that we're being seen as having success across this country. However, it's going to you have to attract doctors and nurse practitioners and nurses, dietitians to come and work in those clinics. So I think the biggest challenge is going to be the human resource issue, as it is in our hospitals right now and everywhere in the province.
All right, Claire, that's Dr. Chris Goodyear, General Surgeon at the Chalmers Hospital in Fredericton. We're going to send it back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Khalil. That's Khalil Akhtar with our community panel there just outside the studio here in our Fredericton newsroom. Well, we were watching that board all night, and those results are pretty much final. They're almost complete. We're just waiting for 2 ballot boxes to be counted at this point. So, folks, that's your legislature. 31 seats to the Liberals, 16 to the PCs, and 2 Green seats. All right, so just a little while ago, the CBC's Hadil Ibrahim spoke with PC leader Blaine Higgs in Quispamsis. Let's listen.
Are you going to stay on as leader?
Oh, extremely unlikely. Certainly with this loss in the province and my own loss in the riding, I don't see any reason or future for me to be continuous leader. I'll meet with the caucus and the ones who won and the ones that are obviously that ran, and then we'll make a decision with the party president and how we move forward to maybe put an interim leader in place and then go from there to a leadership convention. But it'll now unfold and go through the whole process.
Can you tell me where you were earlier tonight compared to now?
Oh, I was at home. Yeah, as normally you would be with my family.
Where you were, like, I guess, mental.
In my headspace? Yeah. Well, I knew it was going to be a tight race. We were really impressed with the quality of candidates that we had in the riding everywhere over the province. So I was very optimistic. I knew it would be tight, but I was optimistic that we would survive this. But we looked at several scenarios, and this being worst case. So yeah, it's certainly disappointing. It's heartbreaking in many ways because you work. Everyone that goes into office works very hard. I was very focused on seeing better results for the province, and we've achieved that. But we've only got the foundation kind of poured, and it's still curing. And I feel like, boy, if we just start piling stuff on it, it'll crumble. And that's we've seen such great strides of not only the economic side but population growth and kids growth and in the schools and it's like there's so much at risk. But
so there were a lot of obstacles that you had to surmount and you couldn't surmount, unfortunately. But there was the possible leadership review. There was the revolt within your party. Do you think you alienated too many people?
Well, I mean, I am a person of conviction, and if I believe that what we're doing is for the best interests of the province, then I will stick to that, and I will try to find a path to achieve that. Now, in the issues that we were running into internally, primarily it was around the whole issue around parents and their minor age kids and the role they play. And we had 85% of our caucus that said it makes sense to us and we want to pursue this. So it comes a point that, okay, do you ignore 85% and you go with 15% or do you not? So it was unfortunate that it turned into a big issue within the party. And then, of course, there were lots of accusations that went from there. But that was the primary issue that started it. And I guess my conviction and those that certainly were part of running this time around was that, parents are strategic to our future. Parents' role and their role in minor age kids is extremely important. And we shouldn't put teachers in the middle of between parents and kids.
I can see that this is something that's very important to you. You also said, you can stand on your morals, but you can also fall on your morals. But what role do you think 713 specifically had in this defeat, and would you change anything?
I wouldn't change anything, but I do think it played a significant role. Not because there weren't a number of people we had, any polls were showing 70, 80% support. But so it wasn't because of that. It was that the issues of affordability, which, we can talk how we got here with that, The issues around, with the healthcare, we've put huge amounts of money in healthcare, but the challenges we faced in healthcare became paramount in the election, which it has been in many elections, in the country. So that overrode anything else, and it really didn't matter what else was happening. I think people in many areas of the province were saying it costs too much to live, it costs too much for groceries, it costs too much for fuel, and we just can't make ends meet. And we were trying to find a path to do that over time, to keep developing, but also have people have it cheaper and be able to survive and thrive. And it was a process. I mean, we have 6,000 houses that are being built now, or somewhere in that range, 5,000 to 6,000. And it'll take 2 or 3 years, to get, we're building at that level, but it takes 2 or 3 years to get the housing market back to normal.
So I think you told me, what your plan is with the leadership, but what else is next for you?
Well, retirement comes along at some point for all of us, and it can be a tough pill to swallow when I'm used to going from daylight till dark. And I think probably the biggest challenge right now is my wife kind of wondering, okay, what am I going to do with this guy who is so used to working such a horrendous schedule? So it'll be a time of transition. There's no doubt about it. It will be difficult because I'm used to really putting a lot of my heart and soul into everything I do.
You might have to find a couple of hobbies more than one.
Well, yeah, I have a few things in mind, but yeah, that's right. It'll take a week or two to shift gears.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much.
That's PC Leader Blaine Higgs speaking with the CBC's Hadil Ibrahim tonight, and on a night that was what he called a worst-case scenario.
Very interesting, and a lot of people, frankly, within the PC party were wondering what kind of things he'd have to say if this happened, because he is known as sometimes to have a temper and to be very candid about what's on his mind. But that was very delicate and statesmanlike. And the other thing that I think a lot of people don't know about Blaine Higgs is he's actually a very nice person, very friendly person, whether you like his politics or not. He's nice, he's funny, he jokes around, he's patient with reporters, and really cares about his family and is a decent person if you deal with him a lot. And that's what we saw in that interview. He accepted this, he knew it was possible, he was graceful about it, he wasn't bitter. He didn't complain, he didn't point fingers. He explained why he thought he lost in that very sort of engineering fashion that he has. Here's the machine, here's the mechanics, here's why it didn't work. That was the Blaine Higgs that I and other reporters have gotten to know over the last 14 years since he became Minister of Finance.
Interesting. What did you hear in that speech tonight?
Well, very much the same. He can be a very affable person, and is an affable person. And whenever you interview him, he's very friendly and approachable. You do get the impression that he felt he was on the right track, that they were going to win this election. He was getting all kinds of feedback, from emails and people that he ran into. Blaine, you're doing a good job, and you are finally somebody who's representing all the right values. And he really, because he is so sincere, and he doesn't really play a lot of games in the way he talks. When he said, we're getting this tremendous response, people are really on board with what we're doing, I think he really believed that. A bit of a blind spot with the way people were really feeling, and it's hard to contrast that affable personality with all of the fallout and turmoil and chaos in the Progressive Conservative caucus. Very good people there too, who just finally fed up, can't deal with it anymore, and I have to leave. And he's a unique character in New Brunswick political history, larger than life almost, and he kind of did things his way, and it worked for a very long time, but finally caught up with him in the end.
And it did work for a long time, Jacques.
It did. He ran as the anti-politician, and he gave a speech in St. John not long after he became premier, talking about how at Irving Oil he had to watch the tides because the export gasoline could only go out when the tides were high. The ships couldn't sail when they were low. He had to ride the tides, watch the tides, calibrate everything. But as an anti-politician, he kind of blew up the traditional rhythms of politics, of managing a caucus. And so those two kind of tendencies in him, the carefully calibrated engineering and the kind of almost you got to govern in poetry sometimes, bring people together, make them feel wanted, make the team feel special. I think that's where he fell short at times. It wasn't in his nature, and he didn't want to do all the conventional, nice political patting on the back. And eventually it did catch up with him with all these departures, you know, and even before the revolt last year, Dominic Carty, Robert Gauvin, others who just, he just couldn't keep that team united. And I think it built up, and eventually it got him.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to be speaking with Premier-designate Susan Holt shortly. It will be interesting to hear what that conversation was like that she had with PC Leader Blaine Higgs tonight.
Well, I mean, Blaine Higgs, several times during his time as Premier, he would talk about how he wanted to try to get the other parties in the legislature to agree to things so that we could all, agree on a common path forward. Of course, it was the path forward that he liked, and they didn't. But he really felt, and he said it several times, that without him there, that a lot of this progress would be lost. So I would love to know what he said, and if he maybe will show some good faith towards Susan Holt that she can keep the books balanced even if she starts to spend more money. There's a lot of questions about the math that Bob and others have raised, but she's promised balanced budget, so maybe there is some sort of understanding there that the two of them can reach as he passes the baton to her as Premier.
Let's speak with Premier-designate Susan Holt. Hello there, how are you? That's probably a silly question.
Hi, Claire. Yeah, I'm fantastic.
And what won it for you tonight?
Oh, our team of candidates that were out every day listening to New Brunswickers and bringing people together, focused on their priorities of healthcare, an affordable life in this province that we all love. I had amazing candidates that clearly New Brunswickers responded to and elected.
Mm-hmm. You promised some pretty specific things, including nurse retention bonuses of $10,000 in your first year in power. How quickly will you get that money out the door to them?
Yes, that's a great one to raise because nurses in this province have been under so much pressure and the people who underpin our health system are really struggling. And so we committed to getting that first retention payment out this calendar year to recognize the work the nurses have done and to ask them to stick with us as we put in place the changes to their working conditions that they've been asking for.
How soon will the legislature sit?
Oh, that's a good question. We have to have a swearing in. We have to get our cabinet picked. So I imagine it will be in November, but I don't have a specific date for you tonight.
And what are your priorities going to be, though, between now and, say, Christmas?
Well, the first things we want to do are the things that we can do quickly, because a lot of New Brunswickers are challenged to pay the bills every month and are wondering if they're going to be able to. And so we're going to move quickly to take that 10% tax off of power bills right away as quickly as possible. We're going to put that rent cap in place. We're going to take the tax off of the price of gas, the 4 cents that New Brunswickers have been paying. We want to make those affordability moves really quickly so that we can deliver relief to New Brunswickers right away.
And some of those 30 collaborative care clinics that you've promised across the province, you were saying some of those would be pretty soon as well.
That's right. We had committed to 10 in 2025, and we think we can actually get 11 or 12 done based on the response that we've seen from healthcare professionals and municipal partners and folks around the province that have said, yes, this is the model we're looking for. This is what's going to make me as a family doctor stay in New Brunswick and continue to deliver primary care. And this is what's going to help us attract the doctors that we need that are looking for this kind of team-based model that comes with the administrative support, the change in compensation. So we have to do some work around the remuneration and the pay model to make sure that it's attractive to retain the healthcare professionals that are caring for New Brunswickers today, but we're going to move on that really quickly.
All right. We understand that you heard from PC Leader Blaine Higgs tonight. What was that conversation like?
Well, it was short. the Premier, the former Premier, congratulated me, said the results were clear, and congratulated our team on our victory.
Mm-hmm. What do you tell your 3 daughters about this historic moment?
Oh, gosh. We've had a lot of conversations with our kids about this because it's a lot for them, right? Our whole family has been in this together for 2.5 years now. And so we tell them, our unit, that I've got their backs and that their father and I are going to protect them through this journey that's going to be tough and that's going to be different from other kids around them, but that they can do anything that they want and that they have autonomy in this process. If they don't want to be here tonight, they don't have to. If they don't want to go to a political event or have their picture taken, they don't have to. We're going to work really hard to try to make this as positive and as safe an experience as we can for our girls. And you heard me ask that of the public and the media, to recognize that I have a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old who are all in. They love this province as much as I do. They have traveled this province probably more than a lot of New Brunswickers have. Elles parlent dans les 2 langues. Elles sont vraiment fières d'être néo-brunswickois et néo-brunswickoises. They're really proud of me and our family, and that we've achieved this milestone of being the first woman Premier of New Brunswick. They're all in, and we want to make sure that we can. We want to make sure that we can parent responsibly and bring our kids through this process as safely and as healthfully as possible.
And you touched on it there, that you feel they grasp the significance of this historic moment.
Yeah, oh yeah. My girls are strong feminists. They have been surrounded by information about what things that women have achieved, what things that women haven't yet been able to achieve because of our society that continues to struggle with sexism. It's one of the things that I'm really proud of that was in our platform, as a commitment to pay equity, because we should have equal pay for work of equal value, regardless of the gender of the person doing the work. And that's something that a whole government's going to be proud to put in place, and that my girls, I'm sure, will be proud to be a part of.
Premier-designate Susan Holt, thank you so much for speaking with me tonight.
Thank you, Claire.
We've just heard from Premier-designate Susan Holt.
Well, let's be a bit of a party pooper here and acknowledge that Susan Holt's got some really tough issues to deal with.
She does.
In the next in the next 4 years. You know, she's got that list of promises with a kind of questionable calculation of her revenues and how she can balance the books. There are major issues with NB Power, with its debt, with several of their power plants that are looming that need replacement or, you know, retrofitting, billions of dollars in expenses that, you know, could be passed on to consumers on their bills, but various governments have tried to find ways to avoid doing that. Healthcare, she has created expectations about healthcare. Blaine Higgs did as well 2 years ago when he fired, you know, half the healthcare leadership in the province and said he was taking personal control of the file. He couldn't fix it in 2 years, and it may have cost him the election. She has implied that she can get a lot done in 4 years, but man, it is a difficult thing to do. So she's got some real challenges ahead, and she's going to have to be pragmatic and realistic and no nonsense about a lot of them. And that challenge will start in a couple of weeks when she is sworn in. She goes from Premier Designate to Premier, and the real hard work starts.
Because there are some really specific promises that she's made as well. Bob.
Well, whenever you ask her a question on a policy issue, she has an answer, and a detailed answer. We saw that in your interview, and she said very clearly in her acceptance speech that she was going to be watching the bottom line. So, she is on top of all these issues. She's a policy wonk. She studies all these things top to bottom. And so we'll just have to give her time and space to figure out how all these pieces fit together, these massive amount of promises that she made. Will it fit inside a budget? You know, she made this happen for herself. She decided she wanted to run for the leadership. She built a campaign. and made it happen. She wasn't anointed by the party. She wasn't recruited by insiders, the party brass. She decided herself she was going to do it. She made it happen. She built the team. She did the same thing in the election. So we're just going to have to watch her run this whole show. I've counted briefly here. I'm not 100% sure of my count, but I feel there's 17 women elected to the legislature tonight, which I believe would be an all-time record. Maybe I
think it might be.
Over
That would
my
be
skis,
almost
but
a third, yeah.
you can tell in her comments she's concerned about issues of her own family, things we don't normally hear from a premier. When first elected, she asked people to pay respect to her children, give them space, and she really is. You just feel like we are entering a new era. It's a very significant change from Blaine Higgs, not just from Conservative to Liberal, but from man to woman. And it's going to be different, and it's going to be interesting to follow this story along as it develops.
It certainly is. And following this story and this night along is David Cochran and his political insider panel. David Cochran.
All right, Claire, thank you very much. We've heard now from Susan Holt, gang, a policy wonk, as Robert described her, a premier designate, but Nicole, a mom to 3 girls, all under the age of 13. They're 12, 10, and 7. I want to focus a little bit on that because she talked about it in the interview there with Claire, saying they're taking steps, her and her husband, John, to parent responsibly. But she said in her speech, please treat my children with care. Yeah. This is a real problem for women in public office these days. I interviewed Carla Qualter on Friday, who told me about she took her kids to a 7-Eleven after an activity on the weekend to get Slurpees, and she got accosted so intensely in front of her kids, the cops had to be called. What do you think she's bracing for as a premier of New Brunswick?
I think it is a real concern, and it's on this night of what should be very joyous and happy, to actually come out and say that obviously indicates that there is a deep concern about this. And it's kind of sad. But what I do appreciate about it is the fact that she did raise it. And she did say, I'm going to be the mama bear. And I think she feels that way about New Brunswick, too.
Yeah, she took it on head on, right?
Yeah, she did take it on head on. And I think that that's how she takes on issues. And I think that's how she's going to be with New Brunswick. She loves this province, and it's going to come through. I think she is a 21st century leader dealing with 21st century issues like social media, like what Ms. Qualter put up with. So, but she's the one to do it, too.
Well, Amanda, it's interesting, that we do more and more interviews about women leaving politics because of toxicity, and you have to contrast that with this historic moment of, the first woman, soon to be premier of the province of New Brunswick, and coming in at a young age with kids who are so young and speaking to this challenge. What do you make of what we heard from Susan Holt?
I think it really shows. So 2 things. One, she won with almost 50% of the popular vote. So there was I was a little worried that New Brunswick wasn't ready for a woman leader. And if she had lost her seat, I would have questioned if it was because she was a woman. And so that right there just shows kind of where we're at as a society. The concern for her kids is real. I've been around politics, not nearly as long as some here, but long enough to really know that women politicians are treated so much differently than men. It's astounding. And so I think she's very right to be feeling this need to protect her girls. And I feel it for her. I was tearing up as she was giving that speech. We've come very far. This is a historic night, and we've got so much further to go.
Okay, I've got to throw it back to Claire. We'll get a reaction from Jeff a little bit later. Claire, back to you.
Thanks so much, David. That's CBC's David Cochran. Well, I can tell you, 100% of the votes cast in New Brunswick have been counted. And so yes, every single vote shock. These are your final results.
Let's take one of those Sunday drives that Bob was talking about at the top of the show and see if anything's changed, okay?
Yeah.
Arcadia, Butternut Valley, Maple Hills. Nope, still Conservative, still PC. They held on to that comfortably. Next, we've got King Center, no change. Still Conservative. This is the Speaker of the Legislature, yes. Bill Oliver, reelected easily in a safe riding. Ian Lee, Fundy the Isles, St. John, Lorneville. This was the riding of Andrea Anderson-Mason, one of the PC rebels. Right. Didn't hurt Ian Lee. He's elected. But look at this. This is one of the marquee races in the province. And we've been waiting to see this result, and it was just declared a short time ago. John Herron, former PC federal member of parliament, defeats Fatin Grzeski, a very well-known in Christian conservative circles broadcaster and activist, who Blaine Higgs welcomed as a symbol of this revolution within the party. She's been defeated by John Herron, who, with his experience, not just in politics, but elsewhere, is going to have to be on the short list for cabinet, I would say. This is a riding that everybody was watching. It was a lot of suspense. It's not a huge win, but John Herron, Liberal, in Hampton, Fundy St. Martin's, one of the true blue ridings in the province, is now red.
And that certainly was a riding people were watching. Bob?
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the big issues going forward, who is left from amongst the Progressive Conservatives in caucus. They can get themselves an interim opposition leader and get themselves organized. So you see Bill Oliver there. That's a long-time older member. Is there much new blood in the party? And where are they going to go forward from here? I was looking at, with 100% of the vote in, how does this compare with the previous election? It's slightly fewer votes. We were wondering the effect all this population growth was going to have, and whether the desire for change was going to energize people to come out and vote. Didn't actually seem to happen. Very close to the vote total from the last election, but slightly below. So I think turnout's down a little bit. We'll have to wait for final numbers from Elections New Brunswick for that. But all the drama of the night, the votes, I mean, it just is, it's such a tremendous result for Susan Holt tonight. And there we see the total votes, 180,803 for the Liberal Party. That is, well, as I mentioned, it's really their best result in an election since that 1995 win fashioned by Premier McKenna. So...
and this is with every vote in the province being
counted so far, yes.
Yeah. And that's down from the pandemic election in 2020.
Wow.
That turnout rate, it's lower than when people were wearing masks and being very careful about being in enclosed spaces with anybody. So really, that is quite significant.
It'll take a while to sort out whether are these conservatives who are staying home, who
that's exactly the possibility I was thinking about. Yeah, we heard a lot of PCs were just staying home, and they couldn't bring themselves to vote Liberal, and they weren't going to vote for Blaine Higgs. So that may account for 2 or 3 percentage points on that turnout.
Those are some interesting numbers.
They sure are.
Yeah. Let's head over to our community stakeholder panel over at the kitchen table with Khalil Akhtar. Staying up late, they're talking politics.
Yeah, exactly. We've been sitting around the table talking about the issues, talking about the challenges ahead, actually, for the next premier of this province. To Jacques' point earlier, lots of challenges ahead, including homelessness. Marcel Lebrun with me right now. He's the founder of the 12 Neighbors Project in Fredericton. What is your advice to the next premier?
Well, I think first, something about Susan. Someone called her a policy wonk. She listens to people directly with the issues. And as leader of the opposition, she called me a few months ago and said, I want to hear from individuals who've experienced substance use disorders and homelessness and poverty. And we set up a panel of 8 people from our community. She brought her entire caucus, including some others like Luke Randall, who was elected tonight, to hear directly. And so I think that will serve her well. And she heard things from them, like how difficult it is for someone on social assistance to move toward employment when the systems kind of pull back and give you incentives to stay where you are. And you can see that that's in her platform, is making changes to help people move ahead with employment. And healthcare and housing are really tied together, because if you're homeless, you're going to be sick, and you're going to drive a lot of demand on the healthcare system. And it's impossible to work on substance use disorder, addictions recovery. It's impossible to work on mental health challenges. It's impossible to work on employment if you're homeless. So if we invest in housing, we get our money back as taxpayers within a year, and we help take pressure off the healthcare system, which is really important.
This is the big challenge, though. This is a challenge that has grown worse, not just in this province, but every province in this country. In many urban areas, we see a growth of homelessness. What does Susan Holt need to do beyond just listening here?
Well, I think that, we need houses. When you look at all of the systems, sometimes it's people call it a Rube Goldberg machine, a really complex system designed to do something simple. We can invest in lots of things, but at the end of the day, we have to actually have affordable housing. And we have affordable housing. We house people first. If you look at her platform, it has housing first. It's evidence-based. It shows that you house people, then support them. And actually, homelessness doesn't look that complicated anymore. And we're at a scale in New Brunswick where we can actually lead and we can solve this. I mean, we're not going to get to zero, but we could get to a place where homelessness is very short-lived in New Brunswick and not growing like we see across the country. I think we can be leaders.
Marcel Lebrun, founder of 12 Neighbours, thank you so much. Vic Sani, I'm going to go to you now. First time voting in Canada, right?
Yes, it was.
How does that feel?
Well, it feels wonderful. Being a part of the country and then being a part of the community here, it feels wonderful.
What does Susan Holt need to do to support immigrants in this province, immigration, and the growing population?
Well, the third point I'd like to disagree. There's no growing population. If I'd say if in terms of immigration, reason being immigrants are coming to the province, but they're leaving as well. So there is no retainment of those immigrants because they don't have enough job opportunities here. I heard a speech and she was talking about teamwork. I really want to be a part of that team so that we can achieve the goal together as she has aimed for New Brunswick. It's going to help a lot of us together. It's just not about hearing our voices, but to act upon it, execute it, and deliver it.
Vic Sani, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And back to you, Claire, in the studio.
Thanks so much, Khalil. That's the CBC's Khalil Akhtar with our community panel there at the kitchen table just outside our studio. Jacques, let's take a look at some more of the ridings tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of ridings we haven't talked about yet. So let's take a look at Terre-Nepisiguit. This was the area that Susan Holt represented from 2023 to this election. Luc Robichaud, former mayor of Packetteville, elected easily. Not a big surprise. Let's move over to Shippagan-les-Îles, however. This was kind of an interesting race because Wilfrid Roussel, the Green candidate, is the former Liberal MLA, and during the election, Susan Holt would not promise a new bridge between Shippagan and Lamech, and the Greens seized on this. They did promise it, hoping maybe they get a miracle in this riding, which often has flipped between Liberals and PCs in the past, but I mean, crushing win for Éric Mallet. And then in Edmundston-Vallée-des-Rivières, another riding where, in this case, Blaine Higgs had this kind of Hail Mary hope that Madawaska, which has voted PC for long stretches of time in the not-too-distant past, would come through and get an MLA into the PC caucus. But, I mean, Jean-Claude Damour, former federal MP, now defeating the PC candidate almost 5 times, I would say, the number of votes. Jean-Claude Damour's been around a long time, but he's rarely been on the government side in a majority government, and he is now going to be part of the Susan Holt team in the legislature.
So a new experience for him.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Let's head back to David Cochran now and his panel.
Hi, Claire. We've had some reaction coming in from across the country, including from a couple of premiers who were close political allies of Blaine Higgs. Scott Moe, the Premier of Saskatchewan, congratulates Susan Holt and thanks Blaine Higgs for his friendship and years of service to his province. Doug Ford congratulates Susan Holt, the first woman to lead the province. I look forward to you joining us at the Premier's table as we work together to build a stronger Canada, and also saying goodbye and thanking his sometime political ally, Premier Blaine Higgs. But while they're saying goodbye, Dominic Carty, well known in New Brunswick, is saying good riddance, saying 2 years ago tomorrow morning, I resigned from Mr. Higgs' government. Tonight, the people of New Brunswick reached the conclusion that they didn't want to work with him anymore either. He says Susan Holt is a good person, and I know she'll do her best as Premier. So, Jeff Carr, you and Dominic Carty have some things in common, and that you're members of Mr. Higgs' government and left for various reasons. We heard him earlier today, earlier tonight, Blaine Higgs, saying that this was the worst case scenario and suggested that some of the people who may have left, they just didn't like his approach to gender policy. Is that accurate? What did you make of what?
Totally not accurate, and Blaine Higgs knows that. This culminated long ago. Dorothy Shepherd's letter that she released clearly outlines the issues that Premier Higgs has over time, that he does not listen when there's an issue, and it showed tonight in the polls. Like he still will not tell the public that he needs to resign right away, and that's what most premiers that get defeated like that. We haven't had a premier, a sitting premier, PC premier, lose their seat since Richard Hatfield.
Right.
That goes back a long ways. This is the worst result our caucus has had since 1995. And for him to say that he needs to see what the process is and discuss it with caucus, he should do them all a favor and just quietly walk away.
There were 12 members of the caucus who walked away quietly and otherwise from the Higgs team, not running again. You were part of this group of 6 that were seen perhaps as rebels in some circles. I know the seats have been redistributed a little bit here, but of the 6, 4 of them broadly have flipped to the Liberals. What message does that send?
I think a couple of things. There are a lot of people, and we heard it from candidates, a lot of people in those ridings who were committed and dedicated to the former MLAs. And they did not appreciate the way that those of us that are elected to represent their constituents were not treated very well. So that's one thing. And number 2, this was a referendum on Blaine Higgs for sure, and people were just, they're tired of the same old thing. They weren't interested in status quo. We know, us that are political nerds, know that you can't run on your record. You need to run on what you're going to do for people to give them hope. And incumbent governments are struggling in every jurisdiction right now to hold on to their power. So there was a few messages sent there.
Yeah, Nicole, usually when a government runs on its record, that's kind of the last election they're ever going to run, right? Because elections are about the future, they are about change, and you can't just offer nostalgia when that's what people are looking for.
Especially the kind of nostalgia that Higgs was offering.
What did you make of well, no, I mean, you're the Liberal on the panel, you can say that. He is clearly leaving. I mean, you know, he lost his majority, he lost his seat. He is clearly leaving as leader. Where do you think the PC party has been left right now after this election with who remains and the message they got from New Brunswick voters today?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm not sure that the candidates that Mr. Higgs was raving about were necessarily all that stellar, but that's another story. I think that people like Jeff have got their work cut out for them. I'm not sure that it's going to happen from the inside of the party. I think it's going to have to be the people who believe in the real progressive conservative values that are going to have to step up and speak out, because it's a party that has contributed enormously to the province, and I think has a responsibility to do so again at some point. Not right away, obviously, but
right.
at some point. So for me, it's a bit sad too to see that the Progressive Conservative Party has basically it's kind of not what it used to be. And
we'll be back.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Well, I want to get to that.
I would encourage you to do that.
I want to get to that in a second. But Amanda, not to get too mathy here, but if you look at the vote change from last time, the People's Alliance vote dropped by 8%. That makes sense. They got absorbed, essentially, by the Higgs government. Higgs' vote share is only down by 4.5%, while the Liberals is up by more than 14%. Now, I don't think the People's Alliance vote went to the Liberals. So if you assume a lot of that went to the PCs, he sort of absorbed that People's Alliance movement, but then lost moderates, would be the interpretation you could take from that. How do you see where things may have shifted in terms of why it went down so bad for the PCs and Mr. Higgs?
Well, this is cliche, but elections aren't won by who votes, they're won by who stays home. And if the PCs if true progressive Conservatives didn't trust Higgs anymore, I think many people stayed home. And the other thing that we know to be true is that when third parties win, so when the People's Alliance won, vote share increases when third parties get elected. They bring people out who would not vote traditionally. And so if those parties aren't in play, then there's less people are less likely to show up to vote. So yeah, in both instances, I've come to the conclusion is that people stayed home.
So Jeff, your comment that we'll be back. You're saying the party will be back.
Oh yeah.
What needs to happen now? I know you're frustrated with Blaine Higgs sort of refusing to say exactly what the next steps are. Who's in the caucus right now that could step in as an interim leader, as an opposition leader when the legislature sits? And how quickly do you think they move on to a leadership race to figure out what happens with the PCNB, as Blaine Higgs calls them?
Well, that's a pretty open-ended question, I guess, really. But I would look at who has the most experience right now, and who has the most experience policy-wise and legislative-wise. Really, Glenn Savoy is the person with that experience. And Chris Austin would be right there with them, I guess, as far as who can.
That's the former People's Alliance leader.
Yes, who has the experience and the time around the legislature and whatnot to. Because Glenn's been elected for 14 years now. He had a close one tonight. He's lost in 2014, won in a by-election to get the seat back. So he's been around a little bit, and he's the House leader, former House leader. So it's going to be slim pickings, really, for who's interim leader. But they would be probably, for me, who has the most experience to do that. As far as we'll be back, well, we always come back. PCs always come back in some way, shape, or form. So there will be a time, but there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of wounds that have to heal. There's a lot of coming together that has to be done. There's a lot of discussions that have to be had, some heart-to-hearts that have to be had inside caucus, outside of caucus, with membership. And people, and there's lots of finger pointing to go around, and gosh knows I'm not innocent in a lot of it, but we all have to understand that we've had a part to play in getting us to this point, and we all have a part to play to get us to the next step. And that's at some point in time, someday down the road, perhaps we'll be back in power again.
One last question. Blaine Higgs said Policy 713 played part of it, but it wasn't really the only thing or the driving thing. What do you think? What was that core to this loss, or was it just a symbol of the larger challenges you saw with Blaine Higgs as the premier?
Oh, just the larger challenges, and I think I've probably gone far enough into it all by now. But as I reflect on it while we talk and we speak, and I think I'd just like to give him his little bit of time to wind down and flesh it all out and whatnot. But this was certainly a referendum on Blaine, and I make no bones about it. It's been a difficult few years for a lot of people, and we'll see now if Susan can hold up to what her platform says.
She's got a big job ahead of her.
Big job.
Look, we're going to give you all some time to wind down. Jeff Carr, Nicole Pico, Amanda Wilderman, I want to thank you for joining me every week on Power and Politics throughout the campaign and being here with us tonight as New Brunswick Votes. Thank you so much for all your work and all your insight. And Claire, back to you.
Thanks so much, David. That's the CBC's David Cochran, and thank you to your panel as well. We have had reporters bringing us live coverage all night at the Progressive Conservative, Liberal, and Green Party Leader headquarters tonight. They have been our eyes and our ears on the ground tonight, and they've all had vastly different experiences in the news and the reactions that they've been reporting on tonight. Let's check in with each of them one last time. Caitlin Beliveau at the Green Party headquarters. Caitlin, your final thoughts and reflections tonight.
Well, Claire, when we checked in with volunteers at the beginning of the night here at Dolan's Pub, it was clear. They told us they were proud of the campaigning they've done. And another thing was very clear. They were going to celebrate regardless of the result. And that's exactly what's been happening behind me. You can hear the band has been going nonstop. We've seen volunteers, candidates dancing. David Coon himself got up on a chair and was celebrating, dancing with his party. And something that we did hear clear in David Coon's speech was that, you know, the party is welcome to celebrate tonight, but that tomorrow, time to get to work. So for now, Claire, we're going to bask in the rest of this celebration here in downtown Fredericton. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. That is the CBC's Caitlin Beliveau at Green Party headquarters in downtown Fredericton tonight, where the party continues. And Hadil Ibrahim is at the PC Party headquarters tonight. Hadil, final thoughts from you tonight.
Yes, I have a very contrasting image here. There is no band, there are no cheering supporters. Things have died down pretty quickly. There were about 50 people at, you know, the highest point here. Now, you know, the few people left here are reeling from this massive defeat. You know, this was extremely unexpected for people. Even the pessimists thought that this was going to be close. Now, Higgs took a risk. He did not back down on something that a lot of people felt really deeply about, and that's the gender identity issues. And he did say there are other, you know, other factors here, but he admitted that it played a part. And I think the voters have really, you know, told us what they think of that and what they think of him by not voting him into his own riding. So, you know, he created this rift in the party, and you know, the remaining that it remains to be seen what's going to happen. You know, at this point, it's just a question mark. Back to you, Claire.
Thanks so much, Hadil, and that is Hadil Ibrahim at PC Party headquarters tonight. And Jean Armstrong is at the Liberal Party headquarters tonight, where it has been a very different scene. Jean.
Claire, things started this evening as a watch party glued to the screen. Now it's just a party. The drinks are flowing, the hugs are plentiful, and there's just so much positive energy in this room. Lots of big Liberal names in the room, and lots of just regular folks who can tell that there's something exciting going on, who are kind of wandering into the room. And just a moment ago, actually, Chief Alan Polchis walked up to talk to me. He's the chief of St. Mary's First Nation, and the first thing he said is, you know, it's a new day tomorrow, and a nation-to-nation relationship starts now. So for him, you know, this is a big deal, and I think that's part of the message that Susan Holt ran on, of course, but why she won, that teamwork message, that partnership message, and even in her victory speech too, like thanking the volunteers, thanking the candidates, and naming them all, and thanking the women, the trailblazing women who came before her. So just looking around the room, you know, there's people hugging, women taking selfies with Team Holt stickers on their chests, and it feels like one of these nights where people are going to say, you know, I remember where I was when the first woman premier of New Brunswick was elected. It just has that energy to it, Claire.
Thank you so much, Jean. That is the CBC's Jean Armstrong at Liberal Party headquarters tonight. My goodness, our three reporters had such drastically different experiences tonight in what they were reporting and reflecting on. Jacques.
Yes, and so did the political parties. In fact, let's take a look at some of these surviving PC MLAs. Richard Ames, one of the people who was shuffled into cabinet when the Higgs caucus and cabinet blew up, he's re-elected. Totally loyal to Blaine Higgs, so it'll be interesting to see what these MLAs do as the party thinks about its direction, as the panel was talking about. Next, we've got Woodstock Heartland, Bill Hogan, really the face of the attempt to change French immersion, Policy 713. He was out there defending it. Bill Hogan's fluently bilingual, so when we talk about interim leaders of the party going forward, I put his name on the list. And then Carleton, Victoria, further upriver, Margaret Johnson, another huge win, another person who will have some sort of say in the future of the party. She's a very talented, competent minister who may play a bigger role in the party in the future, and you know, obviously a solid win for her tonight up in Carleton, Victoria.
Thanks so much, Jacques. And the CBC's Khalil Akhtar was joining us as well, gathering with some community stakeholders tonight at sort of a kitchen table kind of conversation tonight. Khalil, Your final thoughts tonight and reflections from what you experienced with your panel tonight watching the results.
Yeah, Claire, we've been eating and conversing, talking, watching this evening. Everyone's been packed off to bed now, and we're doing the dishes now. But what stands out to me are really the challenges ahead now in the weeks, the months, the years ahead on healthcare, on housing, on growth in this province, and ultimately questions about what happens next and clarity, I suppose, on Policy 713, questions on gender identity in schools. So lots to watch in the coming weeks.
There certainly is. Such an interesting night. Bob, I'd like to hear your final thoughts tonight.
Well, it's an extraordinary election. It has the feel of these big change elections. McKenna in 87, Bernard Lord in 99, just where things took a different direction. And one thing I can't figure out about the result is whether this was inevitable. It was set in stone a year ago or 18 months ago, and it was just a matter of time before it happened. I ran into a Liberal campaigner in my riding on the weekend. She was going door to door and convinced that the party was going to lose that riding. And they did not have the feel that it was going to happen. I see they won that riding handily. Did Liberals know this was coming? Is this a surprise? Did something happen during the campaign? Or they just didn't dare to dream that this night would happen? Whatever happened, it's an historic victory for Susan Holt, for the province. And I think it's an election victory, like McKenna's, like Lord's, that we will remember for a long time.
Thanks so much, Bob. It's been so valuable having your insights and analysis tonight. Your big brain. Jacques, final word to you tonight.
Well, I'm fascinated by what this government's going to look like. Susan Holt was accused by Blaine Higgs and others of being too far left, of being woke, a radical agenda, all this kind of thing. She's got a caucus here with a very interesting makeup. John Herron, a blue Liberal, former Progressive Conservative, very fiscally conservative, very business-minded. We've got MLAs in the north, Rene Legacy, very serious guy, very disciplined. Moncton, she's got an embarrassment of riches. Like, she's not going to be able to put people into cabinet who deserve to be in cabinet or who think they deserve to be in cabinet. And so she's got former ministers there. She's got former mayors. She's got a chance to craft a government that will be the cabinet that Blaine Higgs wanted to have and had for a time and blew up with different viewpoints, and it is a fresh start. All governments, every government that's elected, every election night when there's a new government elected, everybody sort of has this feeling like, okay, let's hope this goes well. And the government comes into office and it tries to do things and it gets tripped up and it has successes and failures and it kind of burns through the political capital that it has until it loses. And so Susan Holt has that moment now, and how long she can sustain it will be very interesting to watch. But I agree with Bob. This is a kind of a watershed election, and we turn the page and people are hopeful that these people will get it right.
Incredible having your expertise and the background stories to really bring to life those boards for us tonight as well. Thank you. And with that, we're going to call it a night, and what a night it has been. Susan Holt has made, New Brunswick history tonight as the first woman premier in the province's history. She made promises in healthcare and affordable living. She stressed a team-based approach to her leadership, and that team had a victorious showing at the polls tonight. And speaking of teams, an election show like this takes a small army to pull off, and I would like to thank each and every one of them. My colleagues, Jacques Poitras and Bob Jones, of course, an embarrassment of journalistic riches here on the desk with me tonight, as well as the reporters, the producers, the videographers, who were all at those leaders' headquarters tonight. David Cochran, the host of Power and Politics and his Insider panel, and Khalil Akhtar and his gathering of community stakeholders. Such interesting perspectives. And there is an entire crew squished into our control room here in Fredericton tonight. Thank you to each and every one of those people there, and of course the Decision Desk team tonight, who tonight projected the Liberal majority win with Premier-designate Susan Holt. But the greatest thanks of all goes to you, our listeners, and our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll have more analysis from Jacques and Bob and from all our other CBC reporters. Tune in to Information Morning tomorrow morning, Shift tomorrow afternoon, and I'll see you for CBC New Brunswick News at 6 tomorrow night. Have a good night.